They've come from the bowels of hell.
The Dana Gould Hour.
Jungle worms and swamp rats run around your feet.
I bought a dog that killed the calf that ate the canary. What is truth?
And once again, welcome back.
Hello, and welcome back. It's 2022, and you know what that means? Everything is going to be bigger and better and brighter and fresher than... Well, they can't get too much worse, can they? This is the first episode of the 11th season of the Dana Gould Hour podcast, and I want to thank you all for continuing to listen and sticking with us. And we have a great show. Jonah Ray, the host of Mystery Science Theater 3000, is with us today. He's here to discuss the new season of MST3K and so much more. We're old pals. We go way back. We talk about guy stuff. And Valeri Tosi is here to discuss, among other things, Valerie's new comedy CD, out now, called Beach Trash. Valeri is an old buddy of mine, a fellow masshole, a great comedian. You know, we talk about guy stuff. Both of them good peeps, and both of them with us today. True Tales from Weirdsville has a deep dive into the career of director William Castle, who gave us movies with built-in gimmicks like Emergo and Percepto, as well as Rosemary's Baby, among other things. There's also some other surprises in the episode. If you enjoy True Tales from Weirdsville, then you will no doubt enjoy The Cinemorph. The Cinemorph is a twice-weekly newsletter, for lack of a better term. They're articles, little 1,000-word essays delivered to your inbox twice a week, written by yours truly. It's very similar to what we cover here in True Tales from Weirdsville. We did a multi-part deep dive into creepy carnival cinema. We did a story on how Batman Returns became a big-budget parody of German Expressionism instead of the superhero movie the studio thought it was going to be, and much, much more. The Cinemorph. Just go to danagould.bulletin.com and subscribe. Twice a week, sent straight to your mailbox, absolutely free, and 100% worth it. Also, coming up on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2022, it's Season 2 of Hanging with Dr. Z on YouTube. Don't you know? Season 2 features guests like Weird Al Yankovic, Penn Jillette, Maria Bamford, Dave Keckner, Dave Foley, Hannah Einbinder, Jeff Garland, Ron Funches, so much more. Also, Rusty Steele and the Steel Wheels, and your friend and mine, Dr. Z, coming on Valentine's Day, February 14th. Hanging with Dr. Z. It's the talk show for today that feels like yesterday's version of tomorrow. Lastly, a mercifully quick word about our Patreon. You may have noticed this show does not have advertisers. That's the good news for you. You don't have to listen to me pretend to be excited about pillows or stamps. We have one sponsor, and that's you. Our Patreon allows me to pay the people who put the show together and produce it. In exchange, you get a little extra zhuzh every month. Extra audio content, video content. $5 a month is all we ask. We don't have graduated levels. $5 a month. You get some extra stuff, and we get to pay the bills. So, if you haven't signed up already, and please know, we appreciate each and every one of you who has signed up, please go to our Patreon and help support the show. It's a show we all still love to do, and people seem to enjoy it. And that's that. So let's do it.
Tune in, it's a gas. It's the Dana Gould Hour podcast.
The Dana Gould Hour. Free and worth it.
My guest today, if you don't know who they are, I have no understanding as to why you listen to this podcast. He's the host of, currently the host of Mystery Science Theater and a ubiquitous presence on all platforms of shared interest with this podcast. Please welcome America's older brother, Jonah Ray.
Oh wow! Now I've transferred over to the older brother category. I was always the comedy scene's younger brother for so long.
Please welcome the Stretch Cunningham of the United States. There was Richie Cunningham had an older brother, and then he didn't.
Yeah. And Richie Cunningham, I guess, in this situation is Brandon Wardell. I don't know. Is that too deep of a
comedy in general? I think.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I phased on. I regenerated into phase 3 Jonah Rodriguez.
Yeah, you're in the Peter Capaldi version of yourself.
yeah, exactly. I picked up a guitar.
Now you're there's so much to catch up on, but you are wrapping up your second or third season at MST.
This will be the third season. This we did the 2 for Netflix, and now this one is completely independent. We did another Kickstarter, and it was wild. We got made more money than the first one, and we're able to do and make and distribute independently Mystery Science Theater. And the exciting part is too, it's like that I always felt in my head, I don't know why, because you know how much the show means to me, but it's I was always I was I have 3 seasons, and on the third season I always thought there would be that transition. Speaking of Doctor Who, some kind of regeneration.
Sure, yeah. And I don't know why it is. I don't know what it is about 3. Mm-hmm. The 3 acts. But
comedy in threes.
Yeah, it does seem to be 3 feels like and then if it's not 3, it's 27.
Yeah.
4 always seems to be vestigial. Whether you're talking about The Matrix or whatever. The Godfather. The Godfather was 3, unfortunately.
Yeah. Apparently, Coda is really makes it work as far as I've heard.
In the new Matrix?
No, the Godfather 3 Coda. It's
the Godfather 3. Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about an actor that I didn't know about.
No.
I was pretending to know what I was talking about.
Yeah, Godfather 3 Coda. Apparently, it's Francis Ford Coppola went in and just kind of just moved a bunch of stuff around, did some flashbacks, kind of connected and recontextualized stuff, and apparently everyone's like, "Oh yeah, it's great. It really works."
Wow, I do have to watch it.
Yeah,
I will.
Sorry, but I was going to say because this season now it's my transitional season. So I'm directing the episodes of the new crew coming in. So Emily Marsh, who's playing Emily Connor, is
that a Terminator?
Yeah, so it's Joel was Joel Robinson. Mike just used his own name, Mike Nelson, but Joel always thought it would be fun. So that's why I was Jonah Heston. And she's Emily.
It moves forward.
Yeah. And I was Emily Connor, Emily Weaver. I thought would be fun. Just but some kind of reference to the badass women of sci-fi.
Right. And I always thought Mike Nelson, even though that is Mike's name, was somewhat a. Isn't there a Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea character? Is it Admiral Nelson on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea? I mean,
Mike Nelson, it just looks and sounds like a character from one of that era of movies.
He looks
he was so perfect.
Yeah, I mean, he's so Midwestern. He does look like a sentient piece of corn.
Yeah. So we're wrapping up that, and that's been very nice. The just having that kind of that. For me, at least, a kind of finality to it. And then I don't doubt that the show will kind of continue to be able to, go after this because the new crew is super funny, and there's no, there's no baggage around them like it was for, when me, Barron, and Hampton showed up.
Well, are Barron and Hampton also? Are there new versions of Barron and Hampton, or are they also there?
Yeah, Tom so Barron and Hampton are on. Yeah, Tom. Barron does Servo, Hampton does Crow, so they'll be on. My episodes, and then these new Chrome servers are great. Connor McGiffin is Servo. He's incredible. He's like a musical theater kid that is just super funny. One of the just those deliveries that like didn't come up in comedy, just kind of came up in dance and stuff like that. But just like
it's a natural progression.
Yeah, exactly. And then Nate Beagle, who's like a huge voiceover guy and teacher, really super funny. He's doing Crow, has a great angle on it, great joke writer. He's kind of a Henson trained, puppeteer guy. So he's actually a puppeteer. And then there's Yvonne Fries who's doing GPC and like a Mad in her own right. So it's like this. And then she's from the Midwest. Like the first time she ever left the Midwest was to go on the first Mystery Science Theater tour that I wasn't on.
Right. No, these people, and it's Emily Connor, is it?
Emily Marsh is her.
Emily Marsh is playing Emily Connor.
Yeah.
Did they find her to do?
They did auditions for that
show,
tour.
but was this for the live show? For
the live show, yeah. So because it's like, after 2 tours, me and the TV show crew were just exhausted from it. It's we were all like near 40. We're all sleeping on a bus, and it was like it was just tough. It was like literally like the thing I thought I wanted my entire life. Like it's like this is great. Like being on tour, being in a bus, so it's comfortable, but like it's just it was super exhausting for me, and I could barely. You
are literally Danny. I am too old for this shit.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then so like like we didn't want to go, so they did auditions. And these people, went and auditioned for the live show. So they used a casting place that does live theater shows. And so that's kind of where they all came from.
Oh, okay. So they were in that casting agent's world. Yes. And that's how you discovered these people that happen to have a skill set. They're just not in the typical tranche. Casting tranche that you go to. Oh, that's really fascinating, and it's great that Joel has. I mean, and I don't know if this was the intention. I think this was the unintentional result. Has built this sort of franchise, and now The fans have funded the means of production and the means of distribution. I mean, there literally is no gatekeeper between Joel and the fans, or the Mystery Science Theater infrastructure and the fans. It's like a completely dynamic food chain.
No, it really they feed into
it's really,
each other.
Man, it's great. I mean, I think
it's incredible. Great. It's to see also to like be embraced by the fans, myself, and to be able to now champion the newer crew. It feels also cyclical and beautiful to me.
Yeah, no, I totally get it.
I get to now repay all this, like when Bill Corbin, Kevin Murphy, and Trace and Franklin, when they were like good about endorsing me for when I got the gig, and very much supported me publicly. It blew me away. It was super nice of them, and I know it was complicated for them. Less complicated for me, of course, now to do it. But I'm super lucky to be able to now just go these kids, and then help them, and also be talk to them, going I know how wild this feels. I know, talking to Emily, I goes, it's like, you have a lot on your plate. You're going to feel lonely up there because it's just you next to 2 pieces of plastic. It's it's a wild thing.
And I can imagine I know Frank and Patton are friends. But it even if you're totally cool with it, it's got to be strange for Frank. In the way there's footage of Shatner, who's the atomic clock of not cool in these regards, meeting the guy, whoever the actor who played him in the Abrams films. Dinklehopper there.
And Chris, his most likely his name,
Chris Pine.
Chris Pine. Yeah,
his father was on Chips. That's all I know. But and Chris Pine is so what a pleasure to meet you. And you can just see Shatner because you're really looking at your own expiration date. It's it's very
I mean, that happens so much. And, we've dealt with that. Even like, it's like you've been in comedy longer than I, but like even in my time, it's like you see it happen a few times over. Like it just constantly happens where, you get a gig and you kind of turn your back from the scene for a tad, then you come back like, later in the summer and everyone's different. There's all of a sudden this new dynamic. There's this new scene almost. And there's all these people that are like, well, that's that guy. He's always super funny. She's always doing this. Like, and you're like, who, and then you immediately, because it's like, no, it doesn't close. It's a 24-hour diner, this comedy scene, this entertainment scene. So there's always people flooding in and there's not enough people flooding out.
Yeah, that's well put. And you also see it's cyclical, and there are it's like we were talking about Anthony Jeselnik the other day. And like when I saw Anthony Jeselnik the very first time, I thought, oh, he's the new Drake. Because there was a guy named Drake Sather who's sadly no longer with us. But if you YouTube Drake Sather, it's like, oh yeah, he was Anthony Jeselnik 1990 version.
Yeah.
Like tall, handsome guy, same style of joke, same level of joke writing. I mean, they're both superlative writers. Drake wrote Zoolander. I remember when I was working on Parks and Rec and met Aubrey Plaza, I was like, oh, you're Janine this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's just kind of fun to do, I remember even when I showed up, I think it was even someone like, it's like, Fred Belford. He's like, oh, you're like the new me, and like,
I can see that.
Yeah. Just tall hipster, guy.
Affable kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of a golden retriever kind of a guy.
I just wanted, I was just so excited to be there and be involved. But then it's also like, it's like, I think I got attention because it was like right when the kind of the hipster look and style, like kind of was just kind of coming into consciousness. And I just happened to look.
Right.
I had the frames and the floppy hair and the, cowboy shirts. And I just kind of personified that for that scene, for the LA scene at that time. Yeah. Yeah. And then like, it's like, and then like seeing like when the new style of hipster started coming, which was like, the baggy all over pattern shirts, and then, it was
ironic, outdated video game t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. And then like, and that was like, Brandon Wardell, who's like also like super funny joke writer, but like he kind of personified that, and then I think even like both of us are later versions of even, Barry Sobel, but like he was very much of like, it's like, oh, the Beastie Boys are pop culture. He was like, like a white Jewish kind of rapper guy of super funny. I think about that stuff a lot, like how that, and it's cyclical. And I'm sure the same thing is, I'm sure two guys on Wall Street are having the same conversation, or two guys in agencies. I do remember, when the look that I naturally gravitated to with like Doc Martens and blah, 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 and vintage shirts and stuff, that was a reaction against how everybody dressed normally, which was like track shoes and whatever. And now my girlfriend keeps buying me like track shoes to hip me up. And I'm like, no, I am hip. I'm still wearing these. Like, no, it's flipped. Yeah. And you want to just be like, well, just wait.
Yeah, exactly. It'll come back. I promise you.
Yeah.
I promise you.
No,
I've seen 7 waves of Paisley. Trust me. I'm like Roy Batty. I've seen Doc Martens come and go off the shores of Urban Outfitters.
I'm always like, every few years, I'm like, I'm going to be a boots guy now, or at least like a Chuck boots kind of thing, some kind of casual loafer boot, and like I do it for a little bit.
These are the new ones. This is the new thing.
That's and every time I try, I just like, because it's hard to find low tops. I'm already 6'4". I like any kind of height boost is something that I desperately don't need. I just feel like a bruiser. Like every time I'm like wearing boots, I'm like this big guy. This kind of, it's like, just trying to look tough. But so I still like, every time I kind of go a little bit of a way, I come back to my, my Tiger Onitsukas from Asics.
Yeah, it's what you just kind of, you find it, everybody kind of finds a shtick, and you can play with it on the edges, but you don't want to be 59-year-old, 60-year-old guy with a sideways baseball cap on.
Yeah. It's tricky because you don't want to like get locked into it. What's so I think about this stuff a lot because it's I started doing comedy at 20 years old. I feel, at least at the time, I feel like I got noticed quickly, maybe too quickly before I even like was able to establish a true work ethic for my stand up. And I like just, I just this attention. And then of course you have a meeting when it's like, I was like 2021. I had my first meeting with like an agent or a manager, and they like, they go, so like, what's your show? Well, like who, like, you have to solidify who you are at such a young age. Yeah. And then you get locked into it because this is what's getting you attention. This is what's like making people notice you. And that's what you want, because that means, attention, of course, it's filling up some kind of hole. It means like possible work when, you can be. Yeah. And that was always the odd thing about like me. It's like, I was like, I solidified, I poured amber all over myself and like, just stuck in this like
your carbonite version.
Yeah, like it's like I kept my hair, like it's like I never comb my hair, never, like it's like the same shirt. It's like for super long time, and because I thought that's like what it was. But the thing is, it's like, but my personality didn't match the look a lot of the times, because it's like I'd get auditions for like snarky shitty hipster, and like I'm like I don't
record
necessarily
store record store
exactly.
employee, record store manager.
Yeah. And so, and I was able to do like, Marin's show with that, and that was super fun, but that was like still like later on, but it's like, I think it's so damaging to feel you need to like sort of, so I was in such a state of arrested development for so long of going like, it's like, this is what I wear. This was like, I had a pilot and they didn't want me to wear a plaid shirt. They wanted me to wear like more, like kind of like, non-hipster glasses. They wanted me to cut my hair. They wanted me to shave. And I remember I was like 26 or something like that. And I had like a whole breakdown because I was like, then who am I? Which is a gnarly thing to even.
Yeah, but if it's perfect, well, that's the perfect. It's also the perfect age when that happens too. Yeah,
yeah.
Well, and it's people don't. I don't think. I think they understand it if they stop to think about it. They put you in a slot because they need you to fill this slot, but it's about this. It's not about the actor. It's about the slot. Mm-hmm. It's about like, no, you're good for this role, and then it's very rare that somebody transcends that.
Yeah.
It's usually like, good, now you're done. Like all those, like George Wendt, it's like, you were perfect sitting at that bar.
Yeah.
And if we have another thing that's kind of like that, we'll call you. But other than that, it's like Bradley Cooper's career is a miracle.
Yeah.
Because he's just a guy.
He's just a guy.
And I don't know how he did it. And hats off to him. I'm not ragging him.
I thought he was really good in Nightmare Alley.
Yeah, that was great. I thought it was great in Nightmare Alley. That was great in Nightmare Alley. Yeah.
I think there's that's
the kind of upbeat movie we need for these times.
Deanna and I, my wife, we said it's the Tales from the Crypt movie we always deserved.
Yeah, as opposed to
Bordello.
It's the Bordello of Blood.
Listen, the thing is, I love Demon Knight. It's one of my favorites. I go back to it often because it's super fun. Bordello
Not to be confused with the Dennis Leary vehicle, Judgment Night.
Yes, exactly. Well, actually, no. Yeah,
where Dennis runs a multiracial gang out of Inglewood.
Yes, exactly. But Judgment Night also has the best soundtrack like of any movie ever. Yeah. It was my friend Neil's favorite soundtrack.
Oh, that's funny.
It's like it kind of like birthed a lot of the rap rock stuff. But it's like it's got just tons of like it's Dale the Funky Homo Sapien doing something with Dinosaur Jr. I think it's Cool Mo D doing something with Sonic Youth. It's it's all this wild.
And it's also the only time where a bunch of cigar chomping alpha males or wannabe alpha males decide to really cut loose, so they rent a Winnebago.
Yeah, exactly, for the big game. But the thing that we were talking about too, but like it's like that's got to be even. It's weird because it's like with comedy, like you lock into your character, the type of person you are. So because that's where you're going to build that material that's getting you noticed from. But with an actor, it's got to be so much more of a head trip, because it's like you get that part and then people say, that's you, that's your part. It's not even anything you decided. At least like, I mean, I had to like, I was on my own hill. That's where I had to die on. That's what like the past few years of like, started cutting my hair shorter. I got LASIK, started trying to lose weight, started shaving more. It's like, I was like, I don't even want to be that guy anymore.
Yeah. I don't know how actors even do it. And I know actors that are amazing, and I'm like, that were in movies, like they're in every movie. They're in 4 movies a year for 5 years, and then you never see me. Like, You know, it's
I
like
was at
I keep looking
audition
at, where's
for-
Kevin O'Connor? Kevin O'Connor's
Oh yeah.
yeah, he's fantastic. It's like,
Yeah.
unless it's like his choice, like maybe I don't know, maybe he's doing something somewhere right now that's amazing that I don't know about. But I'm like, why aren't you in every movie?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're a genius.
It's super. It's I don't know. It's like maybe they like invested well so they can just kind of pick and choose. But I remember going to like, you know, an audition for, you know, Silicon Valley, and like I was auditioning next to Wayne Knight.
Sure.
Wayne Knight. They're having Wayne Knight audition. Like, you know what Wayne Knight does?
Yeah.
He was not only in
He's not
the
offer
biggest
only?
sitcom of all time. Like he was also in like one of the biggest movies of all time. Like he was in Jurassic Park.
In
like,
a very memorable scene.
Yeah.
Like he not only was in one of the biggest movies of all time, he popped in it, which is,
yeah, exactly.
you know, yeah, no, it's also again, it's like anything else. Bands, it's often random.
Yeah.
It isn't always talent based, or it's not a complete meritocracy. You have to have the ability, but also there's the weird thing with acting is just, there's also just an indefinable thing. If you either pop on screen or you don't.
Yeah.
I was, you're talking about Nightmare Alley. I was doing this, researching it for this other thing. And in Tyrone Power, who was in the original. And here's the weirdest thing about Tyrone Power. That's his real name.
You need to say his name?
Tyrone.
No, I'm good.
Tyrone Power, which really sounds like something an urban superhero would employ. I have Tyrone Power. I don't need to stand here.
Also, like the fact that it's Power, not Powers, makes it somehow stronger sounding.
And his father was an actor named Tyrone Power, and his great grandfather was an actor named Tyrone Power. So his father, who was Tyrone Power, was a Tyrone Power Senior, but he was also Tyrone Power Junior. So he was really Tyrone Power Senior Junior. But so he was an actor, and he came to Hollywood. He didn't, have anything going. And this director met him, and he was making this movie called Lloyds of London, and the lead role was supposed to be played by Don Amici. And this director just thought, you have more screen presence. And he fought and went to Daryl Zanuck and like, I really think we should give this guy the part. And he did have more screen presence. And they said, like, it's one of those rare things. He walked into the premiere and walked out a movie star.
Jeez, yeah.
And he was apparently a great guy, had a great work ethic. World War II started. He stopped, joined the Marines. He's
did the job.
Normal guy, good guy, found Nightmare Alley, read the book, and really wanted to do it because he was an actor. He was an actor, third generation, fourth generation. And 20th Century Fox was like, no, this is an unlikable character. Is going to ruin it, because he was a swashbuckler. He was like Zorro. He was Zorro, and pirate movies. And he fought to get it made, and people hated it. It was a bomb, and people hated it. And they made them tack on the ending. If you remember, the original has at the ending after he's in the pit, there's a coda where his girlfriend comes back and he's in the hospital, and I think he's going to be okay. Like he's
What's the story in Mel Brooks's book where he was getting lunch with was it Spencer Tracy or who he was on the lot and he kept on getting lunch with this like big actor.
It was Cary Grant.
Cary Grant, yeah. And like where it's like he's like I want to do these more subversive like like different kinds of characters. They just won't let me unless I like pay for it myself. And like it's just like so wild. It's just like he just. It's like
it's the greatest story. It's the greatest story in Hollywood. It's really typical of Hollywood. It's Cary. I'm not here.
I'm not. Yeah, exactly. There's been situations where it's like I'm like this guy likes me too much. There was a story, and I can't. I don't want to say who it was. It's someone we know, but it's like he was popular in late '80s, early '90s comedian type fella, and loved music, and would always hang out with bands. Like it's because and they would be like, oh my god, we love this guy. It's like and like he just loved music and wanted to be part of like hanging out, and then just wouldn't stop hanging out. Like, where you guys going? And like would end up at like a shitty Silver Lake party. Like,
I'm always afraid that guy's named me.
Yeah, I mean it's like I always whenever anyone says like, hey, like I'm a fan or I want to say hi or anything like that, I feel like I should give them as much as I can of me. And almost to a point where it's like I start to give too much.
Yeah.
And it's like Deanna's like mentioned. She's a couple times people go, all right, man. Because they go, oh, who are you? What are you doing? Do you need something?
Yeah. I think anybody has people like that where that are like in your DMs or whatever. Like kind of like no. We met. We had a nice exchange.
Yeah.
That's where that ends.
That's where I wanted it to end. Just hello, thanks. Think you're funny. All right,
you don't really know me. I've got so many real friends.
Yeah.
It's hard, and it's a fine line. And you just try to be. But I'm so like now with the gift of experience. Like when I meet people, like that I admire, and like I'm so like. Don't just shut up. Don't say anything. Just shut up. Like talking about yourself all the time.
Yeah.
You sit down, walk away. Turn around, walk away.
Yeah, you don't have to give him everything.
Yeah. But the thing I was saying about Tyrone Power was he just had, I don't know what it is, charisma or like you see him on the screen and he pops and you look at him and other people don't. They're just as talented, but they don't rip off the screen at you.
Yeah. It's,
somebody said it was head size. Like all movie stars, like Clint Eastwood has a weirdly large head. And if you look at Clint Eastwood in like a photo with other people that are normal people, like his head is like, it's like, as Jon Stewart said about Ted Kennedy, his head looks like a container for a head.
But Michael Caine, and it's a scary path to go down talking about this stuff and saying what works and what doesn't. Because Michael Caine talks about the distance between eyes, like in
acting on film.
Yeah, in acting on film, like distance between the eyes, jawline stuff, like like how pointed your face kind of has to be, and it's like it can really get down. Like it all of a sudden sounds like you're talking about eugenics. It's this is why it works. This is why people connect with it. And it's super weird. Like there was a bit of me that thought about like losing weight because I found when I like was thinner, I had to do less. I felt like I had less to bust through, and I think there's something to that when it comes to like actors that are like fit. It's because it's like when everything's sharper, when every like little like reaction or eye movement or facial thing is sharper and people can notice it faster because it's a 2D art form and people got to know what they're seeing right away.
Right. Well, I worked talking about Parks and Rec. I worked with Chris Pratt on Parks and Rec, and I mean, I made this comment about you, like his character was a golden retriever.
Yeah.
And he kind of he's just kind of big floppy guy, not really nice guy, really, really sweet guy and funny. And then, but you get into that other level and it's like, no, you have to be superhuman now.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a picture. This is a piece of bread. Take a photo of it. You're never going to see it again.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's, as like, one of my best pals, Kumail Nanjiani, like seeing him go through that transformation, because he was going to be in a superhero movie. And,
right.
Chloe Zhao, like very publicly said, like, I did not ask him to do anything. Nobody asked him to do it.
Right.
It's like, but Kumail was just like, I'm a Pakistani guy. I'm going to be in a Marvel movie. I'm going to be like the things that I saw when I was growing up. Like, I'm going to look like
he seemed to feel a cultural responsibility to represent in the best light. Like it wasn't just about him.
Yeah. Yeah. He really he took it very seriously and then put in the work like he always had, like with anything, the way he nerds out and gets obsessive over things. Right. Like he did comedy, like he did acting.
His speakers, his amps go to 11.
Yes, they really do. And he's we always have these things where it's like he gets on my case about like how I can be, self-deprecating, or if I don't believe in myself enough or something like that. Like I'm like, but how have you ever had doubts? He's like, not really. And it's like there's a psychological difference there.
Yeah, sure.
That drive forward. Where it's like I just my anxiety or my inability to kind of like focus and think long term affects the idea of what he's easily able to in his head. I'm not saying what he does is easy, but where he's
I know, but it's also just
you do this and you get that.
Yeah, but that conversation is like a giraffe saying to a lion, just reach up and get the apple off the top of the tree. You don't have to go chasing animal. Just but that's not what I do. I do this. I remember when I met Ben Stiller, before Ben Stiller was Ben Stiller, and it's just like, oh, you're gonna do whatever you want to do. His drive and his focus was so clearly defined. Yeah, and I was like, well, I'm not competing with that.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like it's
I'm not. By the way, I'm not ragging him.
No. It's like that's the thing. It's like I don't want any of these this talk feel like we're complaining about ourselves or we're saying that it's like we've also seen the work that goes into it's never really a fluke when people get that successful.
Yeah, no. Absolutely. It's and it's the same with president. It's just they're all crazy. Every president is crazy.
Yeah.
Because no sane person thinks, who should be in charge of the world? Me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just I always think it's like, I've never, I don't have the constitution to be a leader at that scale, because never once in my life have I said, well, looks like it's all up to me.
Yeah, exactly. You know who should be in charge of the nuclear codes? This guy.
Yeah.
No, never. Yeah, they're all. It's just it's all madness. But yeah, we were talking to get back to the movie, the sort of the show business thing, and I guess it's the same with music. There's an indefinable element that. That Chris Pratt or Brad Cooper have, or whoever, where you see them on screen and your eye goes to them.
Yep.
And they say that the camera is a machine that photographs people thinking, and whatever they're thinking, you clock in on it.
Yeah.
Musically, it's like bands that are technically flawless, but they don't pop as much as other bands that aren't, just because that other band just happens to have something that appeals to more people.
I think about that a lot with, with the amount of punk and hardcore kind of really noisy stuff I listen to. I can show somebody two bands, one that I hate and one that I absolutely love. And the person might listen to it and kind of go, it sounds like they're playing the same kind of thing. And I want to be like, yes. It's the same, chords. It's the same kind of vibe, but there's something about this band, this combination of people in this band. There's a different intention. I think it's there's a huge thing with intention behind art, where it's like does it look the same, sound the same, does it feel the same? It's like no, there's something different about it. I don't know why, and I can barely explain it. Yeah.
There's no reason I own a lot of Bob Dylan and no Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, I try. I try with Bruce Springsteen every once in a while. I kind of go it's like, there's no way I won't be able to not find something. And I listen, and it's just I'm not hearing it, and I don't know why.
And I have friends like Mike Scully, the writer, who I couldn't respect him more. He's the greatest, and he loves Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah,
I see it on paper, but I don't get it.
I just read Dave Grohl's book, Storyteller, which is great. He truly is a great storyteller. Really funny, stories, great structure. Teases the thing, sets it up in the beginning, gives you a whole bunch of mini stories in the middle of all this context that leads to the conclusion with so much more weight. in each story. But he, I was listening to this, and yeah, of course I loved Nirvana, and of course, I loved his other band Scream, and it's like, I liked that first Foo Fighters record, and I kind of tapered off, and I was like reading the book, going like, man, you know what? I'm gonna go back and listen, just hearing them talk about like the music and stuff like that in the band, and because it's like they're a huge band, they're like one of the biggest rock bands, they're a stadium rock band now, and I go, I'm gonna go and listen to some Foo Fighters. I go, no, just not hearing it. I had a friend that I respect, like his comedic abilities and his music abilities of what he plays, but he loves 311. And I go, I never liked him. You know what? Make me a playlist of the best 311 songs in your opinion. They don't have to be singles. They don't have to be anything. Make me a playlist. And I listen to it. I go, not hearing it. I don't. Maybe one day I'll hear a Radiohead song and go, now I get it. Until then, I don't really,
Boy,
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it hasn't hit me.
It does. I'm the same way with Radiohead. And I have friends that are just like, Radiohead it's all there is. There's like Radiohead and other music. I'm like, I'm sure it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I'd rather listen to Coldplay.
Yeah. It's utterly random. But if you can have that going in when you also know that it's about you as well, like that other people look at you that way, it really makes being in show business a lot easier.
Sure. Yeah.
It's Jack Gallagher, who's a really brilliant comedian from Boston, said one thing once that I've said a lot of times, like, sometimes you're in the parade, sometimes you watch the parade.
Yeah. It was like 1 year I had 3 TV shows. I had Meltdown, I had Mr. Science Theater, and Hidden America all coming out at the same time. And I remember even out of my friend Kurt was he's like, you have 3 shows on right now. And I said, but next year I'll have 0.
Yeah.
I love nothing more than working. I don't need it all at once. I don't want any kind of gonzo success. I just like having stuff to do.
I like having stuff to do. That's it. I like having a reason to get out of bed. And I'm like you in that regard. Just happy to have something to do.
Yeah.
I don't need to win.
No, just getting together with people, making stuff up, seeing if you can make something like a little funnier, a little more honest, like a little scarier, just all these kind of things. What's that's the true kind of, transcendent moments in my life is being in the middle of it. And I almost kind of resented all that stuff happening at once because I could hardly take the time to enjoy it because I was so overworked.
Yeah, no, that's true. I'm going. I'm going through that now.
Yeah.
But it's like I said to Kat, I'm 20 hours a day on different things. But and then and after June, be tumbleweeds.
Yeah.
And
then I would talk to a therapist once. I said I can't handle this never knowing my life thing. With that showbiz provides for us that constant stress of this is it. Even talking, I've become friends with John Candy's son, Chris, who's a great musician and very funny actor, just a great guy. He's a punk dude. So it's we met at a show and really got along. And he was telling me a story. I was venting about something. He's like, I remember my dad, when he was just killing it in the 90s. And so it's going after every movie, he's like, well, that's probably it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was saying that to Kat the other night, 2 nights ago. It's I think that every job is my last job.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's I was telling my therapist, I was like, I can't handle that stress anymore. She's like, but doesn't it always work out? I was like, yeah, but what if it doesn't? I was like, but hasn't it always worked out for you? Well, haven't you always? I'm like, yes, but
Yeah, Kat would tell me that you need to manifest success in your mind, that you just envision it in your mind. And I'm sure that works. I'm sure Kamel does that.
Yeah.
I'm sure just Kamel, and I don't have that factory in my head.
I even get kind of weird because it's
my head says, no, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to go to the dentist and you're going to get stuck in the elevator and no one is going to come. And that's where they're going to find your body when they demolish the building in 40 years. And I literally believe that. And that's where I go.
Yeah. Wow.
This is how I'm abandoned and die.
That's worse than me. It's worse than me.
If I was one of those kids stuck in that underwater cave, if you've seen that movie, they would have heard me say, I knew it. That would have been.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I interrupted you.
No. But it's like I think about that. Like it just just like my worst like case scenario was always like, well, I guess I could always just move to a small town and be like a daytime bartender. That's really nice. It's like I get to talk to people, and then and then once my shift is done, crawl over the bar, have a couple drinks, then go home. It's I've always been fascinated by movies like Harry Dean Stanton's Lucky by John Carroll Lynch. And it's like just like seeing these people just kind of end up in this spot.
I thought this is perverse, but I often thought like, what would I do if I was Louis and everything ended on an afternoon?
Yeah.
Divorcing myself in the story from the causes.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, Dana Gould became just a toxic concept. What would I do? And I was like, could I move to a small town and write funny books under an assumed name and still have a creative outlet and have something to do in the morning, but just be a different person. I think Neil LaBute wrote a play about a guy who faked his death on 9/11.
Whoa.
Like people thought he was in the towers, but he wasn't, but he happened to have been having an affair. So they just tried to restart I don't know that I'd have to read the play to tell you what happens, but it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
I would think after a while you would miss you.
Yeah. Yeah. But what if he never really liked you?
Two different things.
Yeah. Yeah. You could still miss something that that's what I was saying earlier about like, all the stuff I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to change myself. I'm just trying. I think I changed myself when I got into, comedy. I think I might have just like pushed off any kind of growth. And, you've known me for a long time now. And like, it's like, we've had these conversations privately, a ton, or that need to like shave away the way people perceive you. I remember like when I was thinking about getting LASIK and our friend Dave Anthony, who was like, just a shit starter anyway, but he's a pal. But like, he said this, I think, authentically. He said, "What about your brand?" And that made me want to get LASIK all that much more. I was supposed to just be a guy that made stuff, and then you didn't really know him. I just would show up and make stuff. And
you naturally evolve as an artist. You naturally, hopefully, evolve and grow as a person, and then. Like I don't know anything about this, but Kat tells me about it. Like the brilliance of Madonna. Mm-hmm. Again, I know nothing about what I'm talking about. Like the way she would read. She was like a Pontiac. She would there would be a new model every 2 years, and it allowed her to be new repeatedly. Yeah, because you can only be the new thing once. Yeah. But she found a way to do it, to change it just enough to make it interesting, but maintain the original concept.
David Bowie,
and you have to have David Bowie and you really have to. I don't know how much of that is studied and how much of that is I'm bored of this. Yeah, like the way that like getting into a area that I have some interest in, so I can speak to it. The way Elvis Costello at his creative peak did different styles of albums because it was like, well, I did that album, I want to do like a Stax album. You just challenge yourself because you can also just you don't want to be just like the same old.
I've found like, although I've done stuff that has fan bases, and I might have some kind of small version of a fan base. But a lot of them, like, a lot of things they rarely, I found for me, transfer over. So it's, for example, my friend Dave Schilling wanted me to do a podcast with him. And it was just like, he was like, I'll just kind of do the work. You just show up and record and we'll be fun. And it was, a paying gig. So we did it for, 10 months or so. And like, I think like when I signed on, the company we were doing it for, like, got excited. Because it's like,
Right.
if you look at me on paper, it's like The Meltdown, Mr. Science Theater, it's like, Nerdist podcast, all this kind of stuff, which have big numbers. And then, or seem kind of, like they have a fan base. But like, it's like, the people who like Mr. Science Theater, that's what they like. I don't bring them along with people who like,
Right.
There's even people I've run into where it's like, they just saw Hidden America, which is like, one, kind of hard to, but like, you rarely bring that stuff along with you.
It's the conundrum of it's the conundrum of being James Bond.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll go see you as James Bond. I'm not going to go see you in Cannonball Run. I'm talking about Roger Moore, not Daniel Craig.
Yes.
Because he actually had a giant success. Then he had Knives Out, which was like, oh yeah, you actually did.
He was also great in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Oh, he's great. He's great in every. I think he's great.
But he was he was already a kind of a pretty big actor before Bond, right?
Yeah, but he wasn't like but he was an actor,
Star.
but he wasn't a star. Yeah.
Good point.
I like every James Bond movie. One, I'm too busy to get furious about a movie, and it's like, what is this? What is this movie that has James Bond as the main character? What does it have in it that it's not supposed to have? It's like it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's like pizza. It's like it's a bad piece of good pizza. But I did think that the ending of the last one, which I don't know, if enraged.
I'm not a
enraged
huge Bond guy, and I don't know why I've never.
It's the Springsteen Dylan thing. Spoiler alert. If you have not yet seen No Time to Die and don't want anything about it spoiled, skip the next 3 minutes. Okay? He dies at the end.
Hey, that's cool.
It's like, no, that's like the Death Star didn't blow up and it destroyed Yavin and everybody died. It's like, no, this isn't a heavy drama.
Yeah. But they have to change it. I mean, this
is a pantomime. This is a pantomime.
It's been around for so long. Don't you want to there's always a little bit of that. That's the collaboration with Burt Bacharach.
That's all fine. To me, it was the one fundamental element of the character that, like, the whole point of this character is that he always saves the day.
Yeah.
And gets the girl. And my criticism of it is,
sure,
it's not a heavy drama. It's not Wuthering Heights. His internal drama is not that big of a fucking deal.
Yes. Yeah. It's, that's the joke. I think it's been like 15 years of this. It's a dark take on, it's always.
Yeah. It's a dark take on circus geeks.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
not. Yeah.
It's because it becomes prestige in a way. It's to people's heads.
Yeah. We've inverted everything where, like, our mythology now is all our mythology is now superheroes in the way that our mythology used to be cowboys.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the 1800s. I'm talking about the 1950s.
Yeah.
That every third movie was a cowboy movie. Now every third movie is a superhero movie. It's just where we place our mythology. Eddie Gorodetsky said something really brilliant, that people don't put their aspirational fantasy life into music as much as they used to. Now they have to share that with gaming.
Oh, wow.
Which I thought was really brilliant.
Yeah. Yes.
Where music really did have a monopoly on where high school kids lived out their fantasy versions of themselves.
Yeah. Now it's just an avatar in a Minecraft thing.
Yeah.
Which is, it's not bad. It's not good. It's just the same thing with a different, coat.
You'll have a completely online life. Like, you'll have, what is it? It's like you'll have like a crypto life where You have a version of yourself online and a virtual, whole other virtual life apart from your own.
Yeah.
And that's like crypto to me. I'm just like, I don't know. I can't do it.
It's a bit much for me to like, but it's nothing that, we have.
I can't I can't figure out Photoshop, much less.
Yeah. I mean, I've generally gotten off social media. I take, long breaks and hope that each break is longer than the one before. But it does fill a social hole for, especially because it's like, I don't really do stand up anymore. So it's like, Twitter is fun because it's like I show up to this, online room and everyone's joking around, and then you can kind of get in on kind of the jokes, and then you can. But
there are there are several Twitters.
Yeah,
there's the fun Twitter, or film Twitter, or Brexit Twitter, or I went away from rage Twitter. I don't know, can't do that.
There's. The thing that I hated about Twitter the most was it made me feel like I was on a shitty, late night talk show, and every time something in the world happened, I felt like I had to have a take or a joke on it. And there was this like low level stress of just like, got to get in it for the boss tonight because they got to have a joke on blank.
Yeah, well, it's like walking through, a sold out Yankee Stadium, just going row by row. What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think? I'm not really. You're going to get a lot of garbage.
Yeah, and it's it's just it's not good or bad, but it is mostly bad. And it's I'm reading the Jason Lanier book, 10 Arguments. What is it called? I'll tell you right now.
I know how to read. I'm Jonah Ray.
It's an audiobook, but I say read because. I don't want to be 10 Arguments.
Yeah, by the way, the Mel Brooks book, even if you've read it, get the audiobook.
Oh yeah, always autobiographies. Always do both. I find is the best way to do it. It's called 10 Arguments for Deleting Your Social Media Accounts Right Now by Jaron Lanier.
Yeah, I just use it basically for self-promotion.
And I even want to get away from that. Like I want to just like in a sense disappear. I don't like I feel.
Should I? Do you want to lay down?
No. I just I'm sorry if it got too like
this one just.
I just like it's like I don't.
I can still hear the screams. What are you saying?
I don't think I want it anymore. It's like I really just I feel like I exploited myself for years of just doing. Well,
let's use stand up as an example of that.
Yeah,
because you were a great stand up, but you don't seem to burn to do it. You do other things. It's like I'm going to draw an analogy like whether Albert Brooks is making a movie or on a talk show or is acting in someone else's movie, writing and directing his own movie, or doing stand up, which he hasn't done in 100 years. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
It's all Albert Brooks. And you're like that. It's like, I get your flavor, even if you think that your brand has changed. It's to me, it's just like Jonah doing this. It's Jonah doing that. It's all the same thing. Where I don't think that applies to me. I think that my stand-up is very specific about the content more than my personality.
True. You're like the stuff you've written as far as it's funny because it's like, Stan vs. Evil is more closer to who you are as a person, more so than their stand-up is, I feel sometimes.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very much, it's like that because you love being silly and you love like horror and you love like, it's like, and you love like, dad issue stuff. Like, and like, but like with stand-up, it's just like, you're like, it's like, now I present to you,
Yeah, this is who I was when I was 20 and was obsessed with George Carlin. But so you're moving into directing, and I think that you have more passion for directing than for doing stand up. And I'm curious because I'm very good friends with you, and I'm very good friends with Bobcat, and that both you and Bobcat have those. You took the muscles that you developed as a stand-up and extrapolated that into a career in directing. I find that because I didn't.
Yeah.
I find it interesting because one is look at me, and the other one is don't look at me, look at that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's, I still, I still act, and I'll still like kind of do stuff here and there. But the, I've always with stand up, it's like, if I had a good set or a bad set, I felt pretty much like equally crummy afterwards. I think it piqued some anxiety. I respected stand up so much. Really, when I got into it was because I wanted to, be in showbiz. I wanted to, like act and write and direct and make stuff. And like I always say, stand up is the unattended back door into showbiz, where it's like, the security guard like kind of takes off a lot, and you can kind of just sneak in, and you're on a stage at a coffee shop. You're like, here I am. I'm in showbiz. Way to do it.
Yeah.
They're true tales from Weirdsville. Tales from Weirdsville. And they're true.
Can your heart stand the shocking facts?
The movies. They started in America, by and large, as Nickelodeons in the late 1800s and early 1900s. In the 1910s, with the advent of longer-running silent films, large movie palaces, vast architecturally ambitious theater spaces with ornate decor and highfalutin names like the Rialto and the Strand, and in Hollywood, Sid Grauman's Chinese Theater began dotting the main drags of cities and towns all across America. In 1957, Canadian theater owner Nat Taylor opened a theater with 2 different auditoriums, capable of showing 2 different films at the same time. He then founded the Cineplex Odeon Corporation, sound familiar? Which introduced the concept of the multiplex, single, large, always ugly buildings that could show 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different movies at once. In the late 1940s, drive-in theaters began appearing all over the United States. These exploded in popularity in the 50s and 60s, where you could take the whole family, see a current movie, and never leave the comfort of your own car. Throughout their history, movie theaters, and the very idea of going to the movies, has come under periodic threat. Now it's the brutal combination of technology, allowing people to afford television screens that provide cinema-worthy screen size, image quality, and sound. Also, streaming services are now releasing movies to streaming at the same time they're released to theaters. Why go to the movies when you can go to the couch? And to make matters worse, of course, is the COVID epidemic, which has cast a pall on any indoor group-related activity. Do you hear me, swingers? It remains to be seen how cinema will survive this. It no doubt will in one form or another. In my opinion, and this is just one man talking, they will. People still like to go to places. Movies, it's like the baseball game, what have you. It's nice to go out. And hopefully one day we'll all be able to do that again. This is also, as I said, not the first time movie theaters were thought to be on the way out. The biggest challenge, by far, to the primacy of movie theaters was television, which began showing up in people's homes in the 1950s. Cinema owners and movie studios were terrified that their free ride was finished. They asked themselves, why go out and pay money to be entertained when you can stay home and be entertained for free? The answer was, give them something they can't get at home. Things like Cinerama. Your 12-inch black and white TV screen cannot compare to Cinerama, with big, bold, full-color images expanding on a screen the size of 3 normal movie screens. Or the magic of 3D. Put on the special glasses and the movie comes to life. Films like House of Wax and It Came from Outer Space pulled people out of the house, away from Uncle Milty, and into movie theaters. For a time. the movies needed gimmicks to attract people away from their TV screens and into the theaters. And no one did gimmicks like William Castle. William Castle was born William Schloss Jr. in New York City. His mother died when he was 9 years old. His father died when he was 11. When he was 13, in 1927, he saw Bela Lugosi in the original Broadway run of Dracula and became entranced. He even managed to meet Lugosi, and Lugosi was really impressed by young Mr. Schloss and recommended him for the job of stage manager for the play's touring company. And eventually, Schloss was offered the job. Now, by now, he was at the ripe old age of 15. Yep, he had to drop out of high school to take the job, which he did. He spent the remainder of his adolescence and early adulthood knocking around Broadway, performing every job imaginable, including acting, when necessary. Schloss changed his name to Castle. Fun fact, Castle in German is Schloss. Anyway, years later, he wrote a hilarious and entertaining memoir called Step Right Up, and this story is taken from there. I preface that for this reason. This is an outlandish tale, but it comes straight from William Castle's book about William Castle, and it's about how William Castle was a genius at self-promotion. So, grain of salt in place. It was around 1938, 1939, and the biggest name in American theater is Orson Welles. Welles was preparing to decamp to Hollywood to make a little movie called Citizen Kane for RKO. Young William Castle asks Welles to lease him the Stony Creek Theater in Connecticut. He then hires a celebrated German actress named Ellen Schwanecke to star in a play. But there was a weird rule in place at that time that German actors in America could only act in plays that were, at least originally, in German. Don't ask me, I don't make the rules. No problem, said Castle. She's performing in a German play called Das ist nicht für Kinder. This is not for children. Of course, there was no such play called Das ist nicht für Kinder, but Castle took an entire weekend to write it and have it translated into German. You heard that right. He wrote the play in English and had it translated into German, all in 48 hours. But then, the German government, which was then under Nazi rule, invited Schwanecke to perform in Munich. Castle wrote a fake telegram turning down the request, and then sold the story to the New York press, celebrating Schwanecke as the girl who said no to Hitler. To ensure maximum coverage, he then vandalized his own theater with spray-painted swastikas. The publicity and the outrage generated so much public support for Schwanecke, who in reality hadn't done a goddamn thing, that the play was a hit. Castle eventually moved to Hollywood, where he worked as an associate producer at Columbia Pictures under the notoriously not nice Harry Cohn. Such was Castle's charming and outgoing personality, he was one of the few people that Cohn actually liked. He renewed his acquaintanceship with Orson Welles and ended up working on second unit location footage for The Lady from Shanghai. In 1955, Castle saw the French thriller Diabolique. That film, a stylish murder mystery with a shocker twist ending, was a huge international hit. The film's director, Henri-Georges Clouzot, was immediately hailed as the next Hitchcock, which of course caused an understandably competitive response from the original Hitchcock. Anyway, inspired by Diabolique, Castle came up with a murder mystery with a shocker twist ending of his own and called it Macabre. William Castle produced, directed, and financed Macabre. He mortgaged his own home to pay for the production. The plot is a twisty-turny affair with flashbacks within flashbacks, bodies that turn up missing, graves that turn up empty, people who are not what they seem. Diabolique, it is not. But what made Macabre stand out was its gimmick. To make noise, to get attention, William Castle gave every person who attended Macabre a certificate for a $1,000 life insurance policy from Lloyd's of London in case anyone in the audience died of fright.
Your attention, please. During every suspenseful moment of the running of the motion picture Macabre, the life of everyone in the theater will be insured by Lloyd's of London for $1,000 against death by fright. However, even Lloyd's of London will not grant coverage for any person with a known heart condition or for suicide by any member of the audience.
It worked. Macabre was a hit, and Castle, knowing a good thing when he saw it, continued on, always with the same mandate. In his words, to scare the pants off America. His next film would be one of his best, The House on Haunted Hill. Vincent Price, never better, plays eccentric millionaire Frederick Lauren, who invites 5 people to his home for a haunted house party, assuring them that whoever stays the night will win 10 grand. One interesting aspect of the film is that Castle does not set it in a creaky, creepy, standard-issue Victorian mansion, but instead in the Ennis House. The Ennis House, located in glamorous Los Feliz, California, was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, based loosely on the general design of a Mayan temple. The Ennis House was Wright's 4th structure, utilizing what he called the textile block design. The house is constructed largely of interlocking, precast concrete blocks. The Ennis House was also used as a location for the last scene in Blade Runner, where Rick Deckard battles it out with Roy Batty, and Roy Batty remembers a bunch of stuff he saw. Now, of course, the house on Haunted Hill had a gimmick to go with it: Emergo. At a certain point in the film, a skeleton leaps out of a closet at one of Lauren's house guests. And in the theater as well, a skeleton with glowing red eyes would emerge from above the movie screen and float over the audience. Keeping in mind who was actually watching the movie, I can imagine that the skeleton became little more than a popcorn target, but like all of Castle's directorial efforts, it was all in the spirit of good fun, tongue planted firmly in cheek. And I think that that's one of the reasons for Castle's film's longevity. He was funny. He liked to scare people, but it was all in the spirit of a good time. He was having a blast, and you could tell, and it was infectious. I also think that's the reason why he worked so well with Vincent Price. They both knew where their bread was buttered, and they had a good time buttering it. Case in point, their next collaboration, the legendary The Tingler. The Tingler is underrated. Vincent Price plays a scientist who discovers the source of the spine-tingling sensation people experience when they're afraid. It's not your nerves. It's actually a parasite that lives in your body, that feeds on fear. He names this parasite the Tingler. When your spine tingles, it's the Tingler. And the only way to destroy the Tingler is to scream. Price's character discovers this when he does an autopsy on a deaf-mute woman who in the film, cleverly, works in a silent movie theater. She experiences a supernatural phenomena, but she can't scream. So she dies of fright, and Price discovers the Tingler in her body. The Tingler, of course, looks like a big plastic lobster. Now, did she experience a real supernatural phenomena? No, it was all part of her evil husband's ingenious murder plot. But that's not important. At one point, in Vincent Price's character's research of fear and the human body, he reads the book Fright Effects Induced by Injection of Lysergic Acid, LSD-25. And he takes it. Yep, in the movie, Vincent Price was the first actor to have a character take LSD on screen in a major motion picture. His character, that is. I don't think he really tripped. But he did on screen. The Tingler was filmed in black and white, but the supernatural phenomena scene is ingenious. The scene was shot in color, but on a set painted in black, white, and gray. And the actress playing the deaf-mute woman, Evelyn Higgins, was clothed in black, white, and gray, and her face was painted gray. But when she turns on the bath, bright red blood gushes from the spigot. Very ingenious, that, William Castle. But the gimmick for the Tingler was Percepto. Now remember, the premise of the Tingler is that you have to scream when you're afraid or the Tingler will kill you. Here's where the Tingler gets insanely meta. The finale of the film is set in the silent movie theater where the murder victim worked. In the film, that Tingler gets loose and finds its way into the projection booth. Fun fact, the projectionist is played by Dal McKennon, who is the voice of Gumby. But the action switches to the theater you're in. The film of the Tingler runs off the screen of the movie screen you're looking at, because supposedly the projectionist in the film is now the projectionist of the film. You see film sprockets, and then you see a white screen, and then just the projected image of the Tingler as it crawls along the projection booth. And then everything goes dark. And in the darkness of your theater, Vincent Price, or his character, addresses you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please do not panic, but scream! Scream for your lives! The Tingler is loose in this theater, and if you don't scream, it may kill you. Scream! Scream! Keep screaming! Scream for your lives! It's here! It's over here! Help! 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 Look out, it's under the seat! Ladies and gentlemen, it's under the seat! The Tingler has been paralyzed by your screaming. There is no more danger. We will now resume the showing of the movie.
To help with the screaming, certain chairs in certain theaters were armed with Percepto, basically a big vibrating box attached to the bottom of your chair. So suddenly, in the midst of all that, you'd feel your chair vibrate. Great! To help things along, in certain theaters, Castle also hired people to scream and faint. The fainters would then be carried out of the theater on a gurney by other people hired to play nurses. A fake nurse carrying a fake fainting victim out of a real theater because the fake story on the screen suddenly became real. Next came 13 Ghosts, which gave audiences a ghost viewer, a variation on 3D glasses, so you could watch the film as a believer or as a skeptic.
If you believe in ghosts, you look through the red part of the viewer. If you do not believe in ghosts, you look through the blue part.
Homicidal had a fright break built into the movie. Just before the climax of the story, when the tension and suspense were so overwhelming, you could choose to leave and get a refund if you couldn't take it. Of course, you couldn't actually leave. You had to stand in a yellow booth in the lobby called Coward's Corner.
Oh, and please, don't reveal the ending of Homicidal to your friends, or they will kill you. If they don't, I will.
His next film, Mr. Sardonicus, allowed audiences to vote on the fate of its lead character, the murderous Mr. Sardonicus. Should he be punished to the full extent of the law for his ghastly crimes, or let off easy? Supposedly, the film had two endings, but I can't imagine the let him off easy one got a lot of play. All of William Castle's films made money. In fact, at the time, Alfred Hitchcock, who was then in his mid-career peak of To Catch a Thief and North by Northwest, noted with consternation that people like William Castle and Roger Corman were cleaning up at the box office while only having to spend a fraction of what he had to spend on his budgets. Inspired by this, Hitchcock made his own down and dirty little murder movie, Percepto. Psycho. Mr. Sardonicus was the last of Castle's most elaborate, gimmick-laden releases, at least in terms of being interactive with the movie, but he kept churning out hits. The Joan Crawford axe murder epic Straight Jacket, where George Kennedy gets in a fight with some laundry. The Barbara Stanwyck sleepwalking murder mystery The Night Walker. That film, not for nothing, boasts an excellent soundtrack by none other than Vic Mizzy, who wrote the Addams Family theme and the Ghost of Mr. Chicken theme and about a billion others. There's also 1965's nifty I Saw What You Did. In 1967, Castle picked up the galleys to an as-yet unpublished novel by Ira Levine called Rosemary's Baby. He wanted to make the picture and went to Paramount to ask its hotshot young production head, Robert Evans, to buy the property. Evans loved the book, but there was a problem. Castle wanted to direct the film, as he had directed all of his other movies. But Castle was by now a very well-known commodity. People knew William Castle, and they knew him for making schlocky, silly, fun horror movies and thriller movies. But Robert Evans wanted something else for Rosemary's Baby. Evans even talks about it in his legendary memoir, The Kid Stays in the Picture. But you have to hear it. You have to get the audiobook. And I'm paraphrasing here, but it went something like this. Rosemary's Baby had it all. I tell you, this book was a blockbuster in the making. Could I feel it in my bones? The Twinkies have a shelf life. But there was a problem. The producer, William Castle, he wanted to direct. Castle made B-pictures, drive-in movies like The Monster's Ghost and The Guy Who Did That Thing. I told Castle, no dice. He could produce the film, but not direct. This was going to be a prestige picture for Paramount. And I knew exactly who I wanted to direct. The little Pollock, Roman Polanski. Roman Polanski did go on to make Rosemary's Baby, and William Castle did produce the film, and he even made a brief cameo. He's the cigar-chomping guy in the payphone booth that Mia Farrow is waiting to use. Rosemary's Baby went on not only to establish Roman Polanski as one of the big auteurs of 70s Hollywood, but it would also destroy Mia Farrow's marriage to Frank Sinatra. So you also have that. And William Castle? He went back to producing and directing, including Let's Kill Uncle, 2 comedies with Sid Caesar, The Busybody, and a haunted house comedy called The Spirit is Willing. His last directorial effort was called Shanks, and it starred French mime Marcel Marceau, and is described thusly. A mute puppeteer, you got me already. A mute puppeteer uses a deceased scientist's invention to control dead bodies like puppets. William Castle, folks. I'm in.
I am William Castle, the director of the motion picture you're about to see. I feel obligated to warn you that some of the sensations, some of the physical reactions which the actors on the screen will feel will also be experienced for the first time in motion picture history by certain members of this audience.
He was one of the most popular and successful film directors in the world, and he was at the peak of his career and his power. In the past 10 years, he had directed the following films: Stage Fright, Strangers on a Train, I Confess, Dial M for Murder, Rear Window, To Catch a Thief, The Trouble with Harry, The Man Who Knew Too Much, The Wrong Man, Vertigo, and he had just wrapped North by Northwest with Cary Grant and Eva Marie Saint. And that wasn't his entire career. That was the last 10 years. It was then that Alfred Hitchcock, British by birth, but living in Hollywood since 1939, when David O. Selznick brought him over to direct Rebecca, began to plot his next movie. Although at the top of his game, Hitchcock was very restless. constantly looking for ways to challenge both himself and his audience. He had recently dismissed the just-completed film North by Northwest as a Technicolor bauble. Now, granted, this was MGM's biggest budgeted film of the year after Ben-Hur, and it would go on to become one of Hitchcock's biggest hits. But he felt he needed to recharge his batteries, to challenge himself. He was admirably aware of the dangers of repeating himself. And this was not unusual for Alfred Hitchcock. H.N. Swanson, who was a friend of his as well as being Raymond Chandler and Elmore Leonard's agent, said Hitchcock never casually looked for something different. He was relentless. Michael Ludmer, whose job was to find material for Alfred Hitchcock, said, "We scoured everything, plays, novels, short stories, newspaper clippings. Whodunits were out of the question. He mistrusted science fiction, the supernatural, or anything to do with professional criminals. Since one couldn't second guess what little spark might turn him on, it was terribly backbreaking tracking material for him." He had come close to 2 projects and had spent a small fortune prepping them. Flamingo Feather was a diamond heist caper set in Africa. Hitchcock even went to Africa to scout locations, but the script never came together and the project was abandoned. After that, a dark comedy based on a murder, No Bail for the Judge, about a judge who is accused of murdering a prostitute and is defended by his own daughter. The script was great, written by Samuel Taylor, who had written Vertigo, which is a masterpiece. And Audrey Hepburn was all set to star. Everything looked great. Unfortunately, Audrey Hepburn announced she was pregnant, left the project, and it too fell apart. Something else was eating at Alfred Hitchcock. And that was filmmakers who had, quote, pulled a Hitchcock, creating Hitchcockian thrillers at a fraction of his budget and raking in massive profits. The film that really stuck in his craw was a French thriller called La Diabolique, made in 1955 by Henri-Georges Clouzot. La Diabolique tells the story of a murder plot gone wrong, with a surprise shocker ending that had critics hailing Clouzot as the Gallic Hitchcock. La Diabolique was remade in the 90s with Sharon Stone. Don't see that version. But you should definitely see the original from 1955. Now, Diabolique was shot on a modest budget in black and white with no major stars, and it made a fortune. Hitchcock thought, quite rightly, that he could do the same thing, only better. All he needed was the right material. In addition to Michael Ludmer, one of the other people responsible for tracking material for Alfred Hitchcock was a woman named Peggy Robertson. And Peggy Robertson had recently read the studio coverage of a novel called Psycho by a little-known writer from Milwaukee named Robert Bloch. Now, coverage of a book. You see, film studios pay people to read current books, magazines, newspaper articles, etc., and then write up a summation of them, along with the reader's review of the material, specific to its potential as a movie. That way, all of the executives don't have to read everything that comes in over the transom. This is called coverage. And the coverage of Robert Bloch's Psycho read, "Pass, impossible for film." But Peggy Robertson ignored the coverage and saw something that the reader didn't see, and she passed it on to her boss. Now, according to Stephen Rebello's excellent book, Alfred Hitchcock and the Making of Psycho, from which most of this material comes, the director's review was, with his typical understatement, "I think the thing that appealed to me and made me decide to do the picture was the suddenness of the murder in the shower, coming as it were out of the blue. And that was about all. What the truth was, well, your guess is as good as mine. Alfred Hitchcock certainly was not about to say it." Alfred Hitchcock's current deal was with Paramount Pictures, and it was to Paramount that he pitched Psycho. He pitched the story. Now, you have to understand, he is coming off the soon-to-be-released grand spectacle of North by Northwest, with Cary Grant in the lead, being chased through a cornfield by an airplane, wooing Eva Marie Saint on a train car. And Psycho seemed a radical departure, a seamy little tale of seamy little people in seamy small surroundings. Remember, most of the action takes place at an out-of-the-way roadside motel. A petty robbery motivates the action, but still, this was Hitchcock at the height of his career. Paramount hated it. Hated it. They didn't like one thing about it. They tried to dissuade Hitchcock from making it, but he had his heart set on it. Instead, they politely informed their star director that he would not, in any way, be getting his normal budget. He smiled politely and excused himself from the meeting. Now, at this time, it's important to remember that during this period, Hitchcock also had a TV series, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, a weekly half-hour murder mystery anthology. He introduced each episode, directed a couple episodes each season. There was also Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery Magazine, a Reader's Digest-like magazine, ostensibly edited by Hitchcock, but he had nothing to do with it. But the point is, the guy was popular. So, smarting from his meeting with the suits at Paramount, Hitchcock set about on a solution. He would plan Psycho as carefully as he did any of his other features, but he would shoot it fast, dirty, and quick, like one of his TV series episodes. He would even shoot it with his TV crew, in black and white. He went back to Paramount's executive offices with this plan, expecting them to appreciate the fact that, although he disagreed with their assessment of his new project, at least he was willing to compromise and play ball. So Hitchcock went back and repitched his idea. The Paramount executive said, "Okay, great. Only we're not going to pay for it, and you can't shoot it on the lot," which was really shitty because they made money off renting out the lot, and the lot was available. They wanted nothing to do with this project. It was a spiteful move, but they didn't say the word no. This in show business is called a soft pass, a no that sounds like a yes. Would you like to go out to dinner? I'd love to. How about February 30th? But Hitchcock was ready this time. He offered to finance the film himself, and he would shoot it at Universal. In exchange, he would defer his rather hefty director's fee for 60% ownership of the negative. Now, in Paramount's opinion, 60% of nothing was nothing. So they agreed to the deal. They shouldn't have. They should have seen in Hitchcock's insistence that he knew something they didn't. That he had something in mind, that he had something up his sleeve. The guy's a genius. He knew something they didn't. Unfortunately, and this is a lesson they would learn the hard way, the idea that someone knew something they didn't was not an idea they entertained often. After a couple of false starts, Hitchcock settled on a writer named Joseph Stefano to write the script. A key change from Bloch's book was the character of Norman Bates. In the novel, Norman is very much patterned after his real-life inspiration, Wisconsin serial killer Ed Gein. In the book, Norman is a burly, lonely, withdrawn, 40-odd-year-old alcoholic dude. Joseph Stefano felt, quite rightly, that such a depiction prevented the audience from sympathizing with Norman, as well as removing any sense of surprise that would be derived from his actions. You know, Darth Vader shows up and you know he's going to be shitty. Stefano was right. Hitchcock said, what if Norman was played by somebody like Anthony Perkins? Now, at the time, Anthony Perkins was a smooth-skinned, soft-spoken, teen heartthrob of an actor. No pun intended. He was kind of a, mama's boy.
Do you go out with friends?
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
Stefano lit up. Anthony Perkins as Norman would be a surprise, which was what this movie to Hitchcock was all about. Additionally, they would start the movie with the character of Marion Crane, played in the film by Janet Leigh, who was a big star at the time. Therefore, Psycho, in the audience's mind, would be Marion Crane's story. And then, halfway through the story, they'd kill her. out of the blue in a way that no one would forget. No discussion of Psycho would be complete without some commentary on the shower scene, so let's get to it. The most famous scene in the movie, one of the most famous scenes in movie history. The most amazing thing about the scene is what it does to the story. It kills the star of the picture halfway through, stranding the audience and the narrative, literally forcing them to join the hunt for Marion's killer so they can finish the story. It interrupts the movie as violently as it interrupts the lives of Marion, her friends, and her family. Technically, the scene took over a week to shoot and required 77 different camera angles. The final sequence runs 3 minutes and includes 50 cuts, no pun intended. The scene is so famous it has emerged with its own surrounding mythology. The biggest controversy being that the scene was not directed by Alfred Hitchcock, but instead by Saul Bass, who storyboarded the sequence and designed the film's titles. Saul Bass's claim that he actually directed the sequence has been refuted by everyone on Earth with the exception of Saul Bass. Other questions? Was that always Janet Leigh in the shower, naked? No. There was a body double there named Marley Renfro who did all of the nakedness. Do you see any illicit nudity by 1960 standards? No. But the piece is cut in such a way that you are sure you have. Same with the stabbing. You don't see any, although you are sure that you do. Psycho was released in the summer of 1960 and was a huge, huge, huge success. So much so, it caught Hitchcock and Paramount, who by now were ruefully regretting their short-sightedness, totally by surprise. The film cost less than $1 million to make and grossed $32 million at the box office. Coming in second that year only to, can you guess? No, you can't. Disney's Swiss Family Robinson. With his deal, having financed the film himself, Alfred Hitchcock was now wealthier than he could ever imagine. And that year, at the Academy Awards, Alfred Hitchcock was, as usual, completely shut out.
Good afternoon. Here we have a quiet little motel, tucked away off the main highway, and as you see, perfectly harmless looking, when in fact, it has now become known as the scene of the crime.
And now, on with the show.
We are on location here at the Dana Gould Hour podcast. We are nearly a mile and a half from Falcons Lair Recording Studios. And I'm here with one of my closest friends, a very funny comedian who's also a woman. So let's gestate that. A woman comedian. No, it's true. And she's going to talk about her favorite male comedians. Really funny comedian, a good friend of mine, has a new album out on Blonde Medicine entitled Beach Trash. And this is a comedy album, not like her hip-hop demos. Please welcome America's big sister, Valeri Tosi, ladies and gentlemen.
Can you imagine me, take one look at me and think hip-hop album? 5'5" white woman? Yep, that tracks.
It'll work. It's so funny. Because I spend several hours every day in the car driving a 12-year-old girl, mine.
Thank you for clarifying. I think all the listeners were a little worried.
Yeah. It's unlike a lot of comedians, I'm actually driving a 12-year-old girl I'm related to. And I am up on the, your Doja Cat, your Nicki Minaj, your current pop stars.
I never could have pictured you saying the words Doja Cat.
I actually like Doja Cat. She has a great way of enunciating words. I'm a I'm surprised at how filthy the average pop song is. I'm not shocked by the lyrics, but the fact that there's no longer a belief, you can't say that, they won't play it on the radio. Like, they'll just record it because so much of it is downloading in satellites, and then they'll play it on like Kiss FM, but it'll be like, I want, and then I have a cup, because they have to.
And all the kids are like, I love this song.
Yeah, this song is amazing. This song is amazing. It's Doja Cat, BTS. My oldest daughter is super into BTS.
That's very cute.
And you still stay up on all that stuff, don't you?
I mean, kinda. I've always, as Jeff puts it, he's like, oh, is it not a white woman with an acoustic guitar? Val doesn't listen to it. I'm like, you're an asshole.
It's very. There's a strong Lilith Fair.
That was my Spotify Wrapped. When it says like what your genre is for the year, it literally said Lilith Fair. And I was like, I hate that I'm getting dragged by Spotify.
80% of the songs, the videos for 80% of your playlist are shot in an animal shelter. So tell me about the album.
It's my debut comedy album.
Right, it's your first one.
Yeah, I'm real and last. No, I'm really excited.
How much material on it?
There's 45 minutes.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I'm really stoked about it. Recorded it at our fave club, the Comedy Attic in Bloomington.
Oh yeah.
And it was. I did.
Jared.
Our favorite. I love Jared Thompson. I'm really stoked about it. It's wild because I had tried to, getting thrown into the COVID madness.
Yeah.
It really made me be like, you need to plan what you're going to do when we come out of this and like give yourself a project or you're going to go insane.
Right.
And so I did have to push the dates once because I originally was scheduled to record it in March of 2021 after all of Los Angeles had not been outside for a year.
Right.
And
we only were allowed to go out for about 2 months and then everything closed down.
Yeah, I know. We enjoyed our big 2 months of freedom. Yeah. But so I pushed it and ended up doing a tour over the summer to run it and then recorded at the very end of August, beginning of September.
Right, just before the big shutdown again.
Yeah, it's funny because I kept being like, oh man, I hope the COVID material is still relevant on this album. And now I'm like, yes, evergreen, good.
It will be weird. I'm assuming one day it will be over. I mean, are we going to be wearing masks for the rest of our lives?
I feel like it, at least in places like public transit, the doctor's office. I don't think we'll have to wear them forever, like walking into restaurants and stuff. But I think in high settings like that, I think we're probably, going to have to. And I hate it.
Well, it's interesting in Asia, in Eastern countries, if you're sick, you wear a mask.
Right.
And that was not. I believe that we will now have that as part of our.
I hope so, honestly,
culture,
because I've enjoyed not getting sick, to be completely honest. And I think you should just have to wear one in a doctor's office anyway. You don't know what people are coming in with. I'm like, keep that.
Yeah, it's a good and as an act, because you're a comedian, but you're also an actor and a very successful voiceover actor. Has it changed the way you conduct your business? Like, I know you have like a setup at your house to do auditions. How much our auditions are like, do it from home, send it in, compared to what it used to be?
Voiceover was mostly audition at home at that point anyway. Like every once in a while, if it was for a big campaign that had multiple scripts, and they would have us come into and do it in their booth so they could direct us. But otherwise, I've been doing them at home. But it's funny because I just upgraded my mic. And before, like in the thick of COVID, when I was in my old apartment, I like kind of got screwed because it's very...
And you felt that as the disease increased, you needed to get a different apartment.
I kind of did.
This is a good time to move.
I literally, the worst time to physically move, but at the same time, I was like, oh, this taught me you better love where you live, because if you get trapped in your own home, you need to be in a place where you're not going to lose your mind. And so my old place was it was an old building. It was really loud and like...
I think the easiest thing to do would be what Kat, my girlfriend and your friend, did, which would be to be trapped in a house with 2 teenage girls and a tween girl that you're not their mom and you have no authority over them. I think that was probably the easiest way to go
such
about
a simple transition. It's funny, like, because my old place, it was hard to record because I had a guy that played saxophone that lived beneath me and all this stuff. Oh my God. It was a nightmare. And so, now I'm in my new place. I just upgraded my mic.
Who the fuck still plays the saxophone?
Listen, as a band kid, I wanted to not hate him. I fucking hated him. Like, because it was all hours of the day. Like, there was no schedule to it. And it was never like, oh, he's playing a song. It was always just weird riffs. So I'd just be in the middle of trying to do a voiceover.
And you feel like you're in a Ross McDonald novel. Like,
it was worse because it would be like, and I'm like, I am going to throw myself out this window.
He's the Kenny G of the saxophone.
It was so bad. Wait, Kenny G does play saxophone.
No, isn't he clarinet?
No, Kenny G is saxophone.
Okay.
I was like, wait, the Kenny G of, I was like, that is what he plays.
I don't know modern jazz. Like, I like old,
you like
60s.
tiki music by the pool.
I love tiki music by the pool, but I also, I have Coltrane albums and Mose Allison I really like a lot, but I don't like Chuck Mangione is like when he started, I stopped.
You're like,
there's a modern jazz station on Sirius XM, and the name of it and the commercials for it are perfectly evocative of why I hate it. And it's called Watercolors.
Oh God.
Watercolors. It's just like
here on another night for watercolors.
Yeah, the dentist will see you in 5 minutes. I mean, that's all it is.
I used to date
dental office music.
I used to date a musician who was a guitar player at MI, Musicians Institute, and he would drag me to shows of the Baked Potato, and they would be
good club.
It's a great club, but it would be all this experimental jazz. That was just like I don't know what the fuck is going on right now. Like, and I'm a music nerd, Like
sure.
I played multiple instruments growing up, and I was like, I hate every second of this.
Oh yeah. I just remember that, and that was when I was a kid, that Chuck Mangione.
I'm pretty sure I saw him there. Like, I can't, is he alive still? I don't know.
I hope so. I hope so for his sake.
I know.
But I mean, I love, like, when I think of jazz music that I would like, it's like, a club that Lenny Bruce is going to tour in. It's like 1963 and you get a nice jazz quartet.
Yeah, it's the Tropicana. That's what.
Yeah. Well, because it used to be the cool music. I mean, it used to be like what hip hop is now. Like the jazz was like the dangerous music. And there was one of my favorite old TV shows, Peter Gunn, was a cop show. It was Blake Edwards' TV show, and it was in the 50s. And Peter Gunn was a private detective in this town. I guess it was LA. And he hung out at this jazz club called Mother's. But it's one of those things where, like, he was a private detective, but everybody knew him. Hey, he'd be like stopping for gas in Tucson, Arizona. Hey, you're Peter Gunn. You're that private detective.
Oh my God.
But it was very jazzy, and it was famous for the jazz theme. Dun 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 dun. Oh
yeah,
that was the Peter Gunn theme. But there was one episode specifically where he's looking for a jazz musician friend of his is murdered. But the B story is, hey, I hear Roscoe's come up with an exciting new sound. It's like, and that's the whole book. What do you hear about this new sound? I don't know. It's pretty crazy. It's got everybody upset down at Mother's.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
There's a new sound.
I miss going to jazz shows because, like, experimental jazz is too much for me, but like classic jazz and like going to a jazz club and like having dinner and then like dancing and stuff like I used to do that a lot when I would visit New York, and I love that.
I wish that comedy clubs were like, I would have loved to have done like a supper. I mean, the problem is it's all click, 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 people's silverware, but like Mr. Kelly's and those, like, you're a comedian, everybody's in a suit.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a suit. I would like to do, that would be an interesting experiment to do, we should do this, to do a comedy show, like a formal show, like everybody has to wear a suit.
Yeah.
And you get cocktails.
Yeah, like there's a dress code and it's kind of,
cocktail. And and the comedians also have a dress code. And just to see if it would change the show. Because people react to you differently when you're in a suit.
I think too, to like make everybody put their phones in yonder cases so it actually feels like it did back then and no one's distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the best inventions that they've done is giving those to people and forcing them to put their phones away.
What, they're called Yonder cases?
Yeah, Yonder's the brand, and it's so nice.
It's not like an old, put phone in Yonder case.
Put it in Yonder case. But it's so nice. Like the Improv was doing that for a long time before COVID, and it changed
and
the
you
show.
You still have your phone with you? Or?
So they're little cases that they're like a sleeve that you basically just slide your phone in, and then they lock it, and you can't unlock it except for with a special little like mechanism that they have. And they have like areas where if like you need to use your phone, you can run out, they'll unlock it, you can go outside and use it.
That's really
it's
smart.
So nice because then you don't have people texting the whole time or their flashlight on to read the menu and like all this other stuff. It's so nice.
It is. I mean, that's that's a great example of a technology that has come to the fore before we have evolved properly to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just, I mean, it's so addictive. It's meant to be. It's addictive intentionally. And I know a lot of people that have just unplugged. There's a thing, because you write and you're also online. Mm-hmm. And you just it's so easy to just get lost for 7 hours.
I'm so awful with it. And I even noticed this week I've been slammed more than usual and my screen time was up, which I was like, how did I have more screen time when I've been busier with work? That's crazy to me.
There's a thing a guy invented that I have the link to. It's a typewriter with a Kindle screen.
Oh.
And you can type and you can just type.
Yeah.
And then it goes up to a cloud and you can download it on your computer and do the final.
Oh, so you don't get distracted by anything.
You can't go online.
That's so
and there's
smart.
also, because I'm a weird, old-timey stationary nerd, there's this company that you can get a specially made keyboard that sounds like is louder keys.
The little clacks? Oh, that's so
which
cool.
to Kat's chagrin, I am ordering.
That's so fun, though. I love that stuff. And sometimes I'm like, does this place have Wi-Fi? No. That's probably for the best. When you know that you'll actually get more work done.
But that's true. But it's also, how do you not have, it's like not having Wi-Fi now is I hate, you say do you have a bathroom here? No, we don't. You're lying.
I know you do. I know you have a bathroom here.
Build a building without a bathroom.
Oh, it drives me insane.
It's not to code.
Drives me crazy. And this, and this city has zero public restrooms for people. There's none. And it's so frustrating whenever you're out because you're thank God there's a Starbucks because that's the only place that you can.
Well, I don't know if you have this on this side of the hill. We're in beautiful West Hollywood, California right now.
Thanks for big dogging me on your podcast. I'm just kidding.
What?
I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Well,
you're on this side of the
Well, yeah, because on the other side of the Studio City.
Yeah. And
Studio City I was at the post office and I went to mail a letter or a bill. I don't write letters. And the mailboxes have sealed metal flaps after hours.
Oh.
And I asked, exactly. And I asked the guy the next day, I was like, what's going on with the mailbox? He said, homeless people,
oh no,
a homeless gentleman or more, was using the mailboxes as a bathroom facility, which seemed to be more trouble than it was worth. I think they were playing a prank that left them feeling better. But what I found interesting was, so the post office had this dilemma. We either seal up all the mailboxes or find a way to help them. So they sealed up all the mailboxes.
That is so indicative of this entire city.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, there's homeless encampments everywhere. And we have a surplus of money right now. California has so much money right now that Gavin Newsom is sitting pretty right now because it's a record number. Mm-hmm. And yet we have the worst housing crisis and unhoused population that we've ever had. And I'm they're we don't know what to do with all this money. Should we give it back to people or should we? I'm how about you give it to the people that need it?
Well, yeah. And, for those people who don't live in Los Angeles, I'm sure it's people that have it in, I guess it's national, but here in LA, every overpass has a tent city under it. Mm-hmm. And it didn't used to be like that. So something changed.
Yeah.
And I saw a bumper sticker over in Silver Lake that was I support my neighbors in tents. And I'm I don't want to normalize people having to live on the streets. I want to stay angry that people have to live on the streets. The landlords would like nothing better than for people to normalize and support living in a tent so they can continue to jack up the rent so that average people can't afford to live in their buildings.
It's so insane here.
That is a misguided attitude. I'm enraged that people have to live in tents. That's a better attitude.
You're like, boil it down to the actual problem. Because it is there. And we're constantly building all these new luxury buildings that nobody's living in. It's just a tax write-off for people that are overseas. And it's like, they're
or
just
hotels.
sitting here. Yes.
Every building on Sunset Boulevard is a hotel. Who's coming?
I know.
The only thing to see is other hotels.
Yeah, it's insane. It's like, what are you doing? You going to get a hot dog at Carney's? What are you doing here? Like, it's so insane.
This is where Slash bought chili.
I know.
People coming from all over the world.
And they keep tearing down these like landmarks in LA and to build up all this crap. And it's just insane. Like we're losing what makes LA, and that's the most depressing part of it.
That is true. But what is interesting is that what we think of as LA was the destroyed version of someone else's LA.
Oh, of course.
The strip mall at Sunset Boulevard and Crescent Heights, the world's ugliest strip mall, used to be the Garden of Allah in the 50s, 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It was a bungalow. It was a hotel, but it was all bungalows.
Oh, that's so cool.
The movie In a Lonely Place is set there. And there was a big fountain there in the middle of it, and it was gorgeous, the Garden of Allah. And then they eventually, in the late 60s, early 70s, bulldozed it and built the world's ugliest shopping mall. At the time they were doing it, Joni Mitchell was staying in the Chateau Marmont and wrote the song, whatever the name of the song is.
The Paved Paradise?
Yeah. That has a weird, the name of the song is something.
It's Big Yellow Taxi.
Yeah. But that's about that. Well, we were driving down today, and now they're tearing down the mini mall, the terrible mall, to build something else. So I was saying, pave paradise, put up a parking lot, then pave over that parking lot and build another parking lot. It's just a crudité of ugly architecture now.
Oh, it's so awful. Like House of Blues is gone now. My favorite dive bar used to be Piano Bar, and it was on Selma, where that new Dream Hotel is. That's the thing. It's so awful.
It's always hotels. Who's staying? Who's coming here? What's to see?
It sucks. Like it really does. And like it's forcing people out of the city. And they're trying, like there was just an article in the LA Times how Gavin Newsom is trying to kind of corral people into living closer to their destinations and living in the city rather than spreading out. And
let us have affordable rent.
No shit. So I've lived in LA 13 years. When I first got here, I lived in Burbank, and I shared a 2-bedroom place where I think our rent was like $11.50, and we each paid less than $600. And then now, and then I moved to Koreatown, and my rent was I think $895 there for a big 1-bedroom.
Right.
And now, 6-7 years after that, I moved out of that place. The place I'm in now was listed for $2,300.
Jesus.
It's crazy. Like I'm paying less than that because I haggled because it was during COVID, but it's so insane to me that it's still that nuts.
Yeah. It's just, and people, a lot of apartments are empty.
Yep.
And it's just some guy.
Even here, we have
some guy in
here.
Dubai just parking money in it.
It's crazy. Like, and
or
even
they get it. And now there would be one of the things they can do is tax people for empty space, but those people pay politicians to prevent that rule from going through.
It's so my old building that you went to when I lived on Rossmore. So that place was rent controlled. It was like the best kept secret because the rent was really low especially for that area. And at one point while I was living there, anytime anybody would move out, they would convert it into an Airbnb. And it was illegal because Airbnbs and rent controlled units are not legal. And so finally enough people were complaining because we were like, first of all, these apartments need to go to people that can actually afford them. And also, this isn't a fucking hotel. We don't want a bunch of people in here. Because then stuff was getting stolen and whatever. So instead of letting people live there, they sold the building because they were like, well, we can't make any money then. And it's like, are you crazy?
And isn't that building now? Is it
now they're turning it into like a luxury a co-living space,
right?
Which is just what we want to do during a pandemic,
right? What is that? That is a really new thing, and again, I don't know if it's just LA or if it's national. What is a co-living space?
So this building, what they're doing is they're going to be 5 to 6 bedroom units. And you have your own bedroom and bathroom, but you share a living room and a kitchen with all those other people.
That?
One adult wants it. And they're like, it's for people that are coming in and out that are like jet setting and they're only here for like a little while, but they don't want to have a hotel. They actually want to have
it's like the Oakwoods.
It's crazy, but it's so stupid because you're living. I'm like, oh, so you're back in college in a dorm?
Yeah. I don't see
what adults want to do that, And like now they're doing all those like weird, like, rent a pod where you basically just have like a bed with a roof and it's like, and they're like $700 a month. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, it's wild. Yeah. You should see Dana's face. It's incredulous right now.
So, well, it's all those co-living things. I don't know if it's just LA or if it's national, but it sounds like when what is the weird 2-wheeled scooter that everybody
Segway.
Yeah, it's like when the Segway came out. This is going to revolutionize cities. We'll be tearing down roads in 5 weeks, and they'll be just a Segway. No, nobody liked it because you look like a dork.
You look like a mall cop.
Yeah,
like
you look like.
It's like, what are you doing?
No one wants to do it. You look like an asshole.
Oh God.
But anyway, and this is all. When did you move to LA?
I've been here. July will be 14 years, so 2008.
And did you come because you're from Massachusetts? You're from Lynn.
Yep.
Lynn, City of Sin, never come out the way you go in. Did you come right to LA because you went to Second City, right?
Yeah, so I got to LA on a Monday. I started at Second City on a Friday. Like that's like it was wild. And prior to that, I mean, you know this. I worked at a police department as a 911 dispatcher for 4 years before I moved out here. Just the normal.
Now, have you ever called a 911 dispatcher and like corrected them on their unprofessional behavior?
Like,
I'm in a car that's on fire, but I have to say that's not how you answer the phone.
You didn't say this line is recorded, and I don't know what you're doing. It's basic information. Yeah, it is. It's wild. That's
when you
favorite.
Watch the show Rescue 911, do you think that's exactly how it is?
I can't watch it. It's like, why would I do that? But the thing that drives me nuts is like, after the last couple of years and all the stuff with like BLM and all the George Floyd stuff and obviously like supporting it and all that, it was wild because I would get in arguments with people on the internet about posting like progressive stuff.
Are people arguing on the internet now?
I know, huh? Or like even my dad, like just anybody, there would be like, if you're like, defund the police and all this and everybody would be all up in arms and they're like, what do you even know? You're just a comedian, da 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 da. And I was like, what do I know? I worked at a police department for 4 years.
I worked at a police station. I do know.
Defund the police. Like I watched it. Like it's so crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, and it's I would say demilitarized.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Of course we need police. Of course we do.
It's but that was just like walking into a rake. Like, I hope this could never be used against us. Oh. Let's not have cops anymore. There's no way they'll turn this against us.
Oh my God. It's just crazy. It's like you don't need to be walking around with a fucking AR-15. Like you don't need that. You don't need that. It's
well, soon they will have maxed out the people that will buy an AR-15, and they'll come out with the AR-19. It's like if you have an AR-15, you might as well have nothing. You really need the AR-19 kill thrust.
Yeah, it's 19 because you can shoot COVID in the face.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah,
so stupid.
You can shoot a disease. So what is does the when you go on the road? Do you go on the road now, or have you been off the road because of COVID?
I was on the road all summer, and then I was supposed to go to Portland, Oregon in December. We got a little nervous with Omicron starting to come through. And so we were like, we should probably
Omicron variant.
But it was wild because we found out that the show we were supposed to do, everybody got COVID. And so we were like, I am dodging this thing. I feel like I'm playing paintball. You know what I mean? Where I'm just constantly like moving around. It was at, where was it at? There was one at Siren that we were going to do. And then there was like another local show that we were going to jump on, but I can't remember. But it's like, it's like I was supposed to get brunch with a friend. And then I was like, hey, I'm just slammed with work. Can we do it next week? And said, sure. The next day she's got COVID.
And like she's vaccinated and
vaxxed, yep, boosted. It's just crazy. And like,
and how was it for her?
She was okay. It sucked, but she was okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you're vaccinated, you just get sick for a couple days.
Yeah, but it's like the worst flu of your life, essentially. Right. And but I'm going to go back on the road for the first time at the end of the month. I am going to Texas, and then I'm going to see my family in Florida.
Oh,
so I look forward to getting Delta and then Omicron.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I'm going to come back just glowing in the dark.
You are literally jumping out of the frying pan and then going into the fire.
It's so stupid. I'm just like, no good can come from this. And I was trying to explain this to people that I was going to Texas. They're like, well, what are you worried about? Aren't they going to check vax cards at the door? I was like, they don't even check your mental health if you want a gun. They're not going to check vax cards at the door.
It's so insane. We were driving back from Mammoth, and there's a little town called Lone Pine. And we always stop at this diner that really does feel like the Double R.
Oh, I love that.
It's so creepy and weird. But there's this one diner that's like, we need to check your vax card. Okay, great. The other one, the one that we like, Lone Pine, I think it's called Lone Pine Inn or Lone Pine Diner. I couldn't read the sign, but I knew I was in trouble because it was an eagle in front of a flag.
Oh God! Oh God!
Yeah, he was being fisted by Paul Revere. Like I knew it was trouble. And it said, "We respect individual freedom. Masks and vaccine cards are not required for entry." And we went in wearing masks, and it was like the piano stopped.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's like you just walked in a saloon, basically.
Yeah,
and you're
no,
like,
it was really true. It was like Black Bart coming in off the prairie, and it was really. And that same thing happened to me in Massachusetts. Going into the pizza place in Millville, it was like wearing a mask and everybody looking at me like, we got a MSNBCer in here.
Oh my God. It is. It's so crazy how it's become politicized and and all these clowns, all these right-wing clowns they're all vaccinated.
They're all vaccinated.
It's the dumbest thing. And you'd think because it's like you're killing off your own base, you fucking morons.
A charlatan. The definition of charlatan, someone who is false for money.
Yep.
It's true.
It's so crazy.
Yeah. And it is, it's weird to see it trickle down to comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it is because it's profitable,
right.
Rage, anger sells, fear sells, or it's a motivator. Fear is a motivator.
Yeah.
But you do get like this the comedy civil war of like it's just so it's so nonsense. I don't know what to make of it. I just kind of shrug and scratch my head. I don't understand it's just a position. It has nothing to do with the vaccine. You're just a contrarian.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, it's like, as I said, like it's fear. One group of people are afraid that they're going to get a virus, so they get vaccinated. The other group of people that claims to be free thinkers and, independent researchers, they're afraid that the government, the same people in charge of the post office and the DMV are pulling off a massive global conspiracy.
It's so insane. I'm like, the government's already listening to you through all of your electronics.
Yeah.
What are you, there's no, what is wrong with you?
And they don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care.
They don't, unless they hear you plotting a coup, which apparently they didn't care about that either.
They didn't catch that one either.
It's like,
yeah, no, it's just, and that's the thing. It's like, it comes down to, you're not important.
Yeah. You're not.
Yeah. Ugh. And that's the thing that I understand. When my oldest brother is not vaccinated.
Yeah, my sister's, she got the first one and then she just hasn't gotten the other one yet. And it's just like,
somebody was a relative of theirs, didn't want to get the vaccine. They said, no, I think I'm going to keep my DNA intact. It's like, yeah, I'd give that a second thought if I were you.
I've seen your DNA.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not
I've seen your DNA on display, and it didn't really blow me away.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me so furious. And like, I'm nervous to go see my folks because they're vaccinated and boosted. And my brother's down.
Florida?
They're in Sarasota. And my brother is also down there now and vaccinated. And they're all living in the same apartment complex because they're the most codependent people you've ever seen in your life.
Understand. And now, what is Sarasota like? Is that pretty...
I've never been. I know it's coastal, and I know it's an hour from Tampa, and that is all I know. So and my parents are like, my mom, God, she scared the shit out of me because she goes, hey, I think I'm going to get us tickets to go on a cruise while you're here. I was like, Mom, no. I'm not getting on a cruise. Are you out of your fucking mind? I'm not doing that. And she goes, well, it's just with the dolphins. And I was like, what are you talking about exactly? And she goes, oh, it's drinks and dolphins. And I'm like, so you mean you just want to go on a boat? It's a whale watch, Mom. We're from Boston. It is a whale watch. It is not a cruise.
Yeah, it's a booze cruise with dolphins.
Oh my God. I was like, what are you? It's just crazy to me that
Is Disney World open?
Oh, of course. I don't think did Disney World ever even close? I know Disneyland did, but I don't know if Disney World ever did.
I don't know. It must have at some point. The state is so insane.
I know.
It's so insane.
And it's just...
by the way, I have lovely friends from Florida.
Yeah. It's just that's the thing is that
the government of the state is so insane.
Yes. The way that it is run is not great.
Yeah. It is double plus ungood. And are you just going there to visit, or are you going to work as well?
I'm jumping on one show. I know it's tough because I've never been. I've only been to Florida once ever, and I was like 19, and I flew into Miami to take a cruise. So I've never actually done anything. I don't know anybody there.
It's a beautiful state, and there used to be a great club in West Palm Beach called the Comedy Corner. Okay, which was great.
Yeah, I have to see because I know there is a theater. Like a little club called McCurdy's that's in Sarasota, but I've not responded to my emails, so I am going to stand outside the door and haunt their life until they talk to me.
That's a good way to go about it.
Just sometimes you gotta be a squeaky wheel.
Can you just show up and go, I'm a big name out of town headliner, let me up?
I would love to do that, but they'll be like, yes, but you're also a woman.
Oh yeah, is that?
I feel like down there, it's probably.
What are you doing out on the? Well, do you?
Where's your escort?
Yeah, but I'm kind of serious about that. Like how, like when you go on the road, it must be heightened. That your spidey sense is always up in terms of self-protection, self-preservation.
Oh yeah.
And not always from strangers.
Sometimes it's your fellow comedians.
Yeah, no, I'm serious. But I'm serious. I mean, there are losers out there that are, the most pernicious one is under the guise of helping you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You run into that a lot. Like, hey, we should write together sometime. It's like, we all know what that's code for, dude.
Right.
Like,
oh yeah. Well, I remember that one was also, it used to be code for I watch you write for me.
Oh God. Yeah, it is. It's interesting going on the road as a woman. And there's plenty of times where I'll look back
it's
now.
Like, let's write together. Great. Let's meet in a public place.
Yeah, right.
Day.
Can we meet in a coffee bean? That'd be great.
Yeah.
But it is like, I'll think back to stuff that I've done and I'm like, wow, that was probably not the smartest thing that you did. You're lucky that you're fine.
Right, yeah.
But I'm also lucky because I've got friends all over the country from school and whatnot that I can crash with and figure it out that way. But it's a weird time to even.
Is there a network is there an official network? Like I'm sure, like say you're going to go on the road. Joe Schmo, the headliner, says, "Hey, why don't you feature for me?"
Yeah.
You don't know this person. Is there like a lot? Like, hey, anybody have any? Is this guy okay?
Oh, we'll check all the time.
But is it informal or is there like in a formal place where you can?
It's informal. It's usually like, hey, has anybody worked with this person? Are they cool or like whatever? It's plenty of group threads that I'm on and in texts, and we have like female comic groups on Facebook and stuff. Yeah. But it's usually you'll see who the person is and then kind of see who else is open for them and then just be like, hey, was it like cool or like how, what,
Right. No, just because I was on the road doing sets at the age my oldest daughter is now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I do think about like, I wouldn't want her out on the road.
Yeah. I started late. I started at 29. So I was doing improv and sketch before then, but I wasn't doing actual stand-up then. So it's like, I even think to being, that like in my early 30s and like doing all that and you're just being like, God, it's tough. I mean, even when I opened for you, people were like, is he cool? I'm like, yes. I'm like,
yeah, but I can imagine that.
Yeah. Because they always, they always want to know. They're like, are you okay? Because Yeah, is he a perv? Is we all know what that's code for. Like, yeah.
He asked me to sniff a rag. I woke up, everything was great.
I know. I was like, well, we did spend the night in his hotel room watching Kolchak the Night Stalker on his laptop while eating burritos from a diner.
See?
So that's as wild as it gets.
What I call foreplay. No, but I understand. I mean, I really do. I do understand. I mean, it's and it's a chicken and egg thing. You know, there are, I think performers in general, and I don't know if it's specific to comedians, but there's something about comedians where if you're not really careful, I have a hard time making attachments because it's a very solitary life, and you don't have to compromise anything. If you're just doing stand-up, you go on the road, no one's really and you're a dude, no one's gonna tell you what to say. No one gives you notes on your act unless you ask for them. You're treated special by the club. People come and get you, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's an easily unchallenged life. And then if you meet someone, you get into a relationship, which compromise is mandatory. And it's easy to just go, nah, I don't want to do this. Yeah, she's crazy. I wanted to go one place. She wanted to go someplace else. She's nuts. And then we both know people that miss the window.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, and then your biological impulses take over, and you just go for, you become a creep.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of, and I love it that everyone's
and
like,
as I've said, nobody has ever gone into a nightclub, stood in a spotlight and begged strangers to love them because they have their emotional shit together.
Yeah, no, right. Something is broken in all of us.
Yeah.
And it's just some of us are aware of it and other people are like, I'm great. And you're like, oh, you're the worst one.
Right.
And it's wild. Like what we chose to do.
Yeah.
Like, it really is a fool's errand. My favorite part of stand-up is that it's like one of the only things in this business that is completely within your control for the most part.
Yeah.
Like and that's what keeps me sane while I'm out here because, like I do voiceover and I act and all that stuff, but so much of that feels like the waiting game where you're just like praying that an opportunity will come. With stand-up, you can just be like, I'm booking a tour, I'm going on the road, I'm doing this, I'm recording. Like so many people were like, how did you get to record an album? I'm like, I just did it. I just decided to do it. And I found the label that I'm working with later on, but like nobody gave me permission. I just called up the Comedy Addict and was like, can I do an album here? And Jared was like, yeah.
Oh, great.
So that's kind of just, I feel like so much of the rest of this business, you have to ask for permission and then just wait.
It's the DIY element of the business is really attractive, and it allows you, especially, I mean, you're really smart because you can write and you're an actress and you have a voiceover. You're the voice of Google.
I was for a while, yeah.
No slouch. But all of those things allow you to have more autonomy. Like the more options that you provide yourself, the more you diversify, the more options you provide yourself, then you have greater credit to not have to do stuff you don't want to do.
Yeah, I think there's also the flip side of that is that there's a lot of times where I feel like I am scattered and don't know where to focus my energy, where I'm like, what's the thing I need to focus on to pivot me into like the place I need to be? Where like right now I feel like my acting is suffering because I've been so focused on doing stand-up that I was auditioning and like pre-COVID, I was getting, when I'm in the room, I do really well. And I love physically going into the room, and I was getting callbacks for like most of the stuff I would go in for. But then like during COVID and being forced into just doing self-tapes, theatrical self-tapes, I'm fine doing solo, but the commercial ones are really hard to do as a self-tape because they give you way too much stuff to do. And I could tell like I had like kind of a breakdown like a couple of months ago in front of Jeff when he was helping me with self-tape. I was like,
Jeff,
I feel
your
like,
boyfriend.
Yes, Jeff, my boyfriend. And I was like, I feel like I forgot how to act. Like I feel like, I don't know if you ever felt like this.
Because that's not acting, that's performing.
Yeah, and you feel where you're like, I feel so disconnected from this, and so I just got back into a class that I'm like loving, and I feel like I'm like okay, and I'm like settling back in and like falling in love with it again.
Mm-hmm.
But it is tough because you're trying to figure out like, and I'm sure I know we've talked about this when like you were on doing Stan and being so entrenched in that world, and then when the show would wrap for the season, you were like, I have not been on stage in 9 months.
Yeah.
And it's like you have to recalibrate your brain for that other part.
Yeah, the first time I went on stage after COVID, I was petrified.
I know. I was there. Remember? It was at the Improv.
Right, it was because of you
Yeah.
that I got the gig. Yeah, I was. Well, I'm so weird. Like, I just assumed I hadn't been to the Improv in a year. I assumed they forgot who I was.
You're crazy.
No, I am. It's nuts. I mean, my photo's inside the goddamn building.
I know. Next to the ladies'
Next
restroom.
to the ladies' room. And I'm making a face. But it is weird. I was just like, hi, I've done stand-up before. But I was so like elated when I got off stage.
That's how I felt too.
Do it, thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first set after COVID and like getting on stage for the first time in a year, it was one of the best. I don't know if technically it was one of the best sets I've ever had, but like my emotional level, like my adrenaline was so high, and I felt like it was just this jolt of endorphins that I hadn't felt
you just
in
feel
so long.
So good about yourself, and that's that is the great thing about stand up. But that is one of those things where you have to provide yourself. If you're in the arts in any way, and you're not like plugged in and working all the time, you have to have a creative thing where like when A isn't working, you can do B.
Yeah, you drive yourself nuts if you kind of only, and that's how I was feeling for a while before I ever did stand up, where I felt really stuck. And I was like, I don't know what I should be doing. Because when I came out here, I didn't really have a plan. I kind of just was like, I guess I'll start at Second City because that seems cool.
Yeah.
I just kind of fell into it, and I fought doing stand up for a long time because I know so many people grow up as kids and are like, I want to do that. And then they start when they're really young. And I just was never that person. And it wasn't.
You were like, I want to take 911 calls.
I know. I want to hear people at their worst hour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I want to be a part of the lowest moment of everyone's life.
I want to hear people going through absolute hell while there's sirens in the background. But it is like, I found it like late, and it was the thing. It had that moment where
there are rarely pleasant phone calls with loud sirens in the background.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was that. Yeah, it feels like another life ago. Like
what was the worst call you?
People ask me that all the time, and I'm glad I'm
one of them.
The one that sticks out the most is there was one time where I got a call because it was so you could hear exactly what was going on, and it was a domestic violence
My
call.
baby's a werewolf.
I wish that's what it was. I would have been so stoked. But like it was a domestic violence call, and it was a woman it was her and either her husband or her boyfriend, and they were fighting, and he was trying to get violent, and she was in a car and she was trying to get away from him, and she had the car speakerphone on, and she was trying to get away from him, and the guy was so out of his mind that he like ran after her and jumped on the hood of the car and was trying to like hit her through the window of the car, and you could hear all of it as she's like screaming, and it was it was terrifying, and like just like hearing like the thud and like just it was wild.
She didn't roll up the window.
Well, I think that she was trying to drive at the same time while also calling, so it was like it was really awful. But
and she was playing with the radio,
and she's like, I need to hear the Miley Cyrus song before this can end.
Oh no, that is insane.
It was crazy. I mean, we have a lot of that.
Are you
stuff.
on the phone with her until the cops show up?
Yeah, because they're on their way.
I know this looks bad.
Yeah, right. It wasn't me. I have an alibi, but it was like. It was crazy. We would see stuff like that a lot. I mean, so many drug overdoses in that town, and like the wildest part was.
Now you were in Lynn. What year?
This wasn't in Lynn though. This was in I lived in Salisbury from when I was 10 until I left for LA. Right. Essentially,
that's a beach town.
Yes, hence the name Beach Trash of the album. So it was I worked for Newbury, which was the neighboring town, and it was also
in Newburyport.
Yes. So, but Newburyport had they had their own, but we did for Newbury.
Kevin Rooney is from Newburyport.
Oh, I didn't know that. So is Tom Bergeron. He used to come back and do the dude from Hollywood Squares. He used to come and do the the talent show at the
of course he did.
The Yankee Homecoming every year.
Hilarious.
Yep, I remember it. And I remember he was like, I think probably like the first celebrity I ever met, because it was me and a couple of other guys that we were in choir together that we did like a doo-wop version of a Billy Joel song for the talent show. And I was like, hello, Mr. Tom Bergeron.
That's amazing.
But yeah, it was crazy because, you know, I would see people I went to high school with come through because it was the same town that our high school was in. That was the jurisdiction. And like the thing I didn't know that I signed up for was I would have to do what's called matron duty because I was one of the only women that worked at the department. So if there was ever a woman that was locked up and it was like a holiday weekend and they were there the whole weekend because the courts weren't open, they had to have a female on duty the entire time a woman was locked up. So I would get a call in the dead of night, just being like, you need to come down here, or we've got somebody in the drunk tank, you need to be, and I'm like, oh God. And then I have to come in, I have to throw on some gloves and give a pat down of this woman who was, so, I mean, sometimes that people were just like,
not at their best.
Not at their finest. Yep. And it was...
Rarely do they sweep in like Grace Kelly in Rear Window. Hello.
Hello.
I'm very drunk. I was at the club and I got drunk.
Yeah, I was at the Lion's Den, which is our strip club that's there.
Oh,
we had the Lion's Den, then they changed it to Kittens, and my mom and her friends all called it the litter box, which is one of my favorite things. But yeah, it was wild.
The Lion's Den.
Mm-hmm.
That's
and
not
then
a good,
Kittens.
Not a good name when you step it out. What happens in a Lion's Den?
You get eaten, or
exactly.
eat or be eaten. I guess.
It's just a terrible, terrible. Yeah, and they're violent, but that's gonna really suck. Like you get a DUI and it's a holiday weekend and you're stuck in there.
Yep. It was really nuts. Yeah, we saw some like wild stuff. We had like one of our detectives would. He would do like undercover kind of stuff all the time, like operations to like bust people for like child porn and whatever. And it was like, we saw some gnarly stuff that was there.
Yeah, you don't want to know. You don't want to know what's out there. No, but here's an interesting idea. Take a minute to think about it. Were you to make a documentary, what would you want to make a documentary about?
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
What would I want to make a documentary about? I mean, I don't think there's a documentary on the X-Files. That would be cool.
That is true.
I don't think that there is one. That would be really cool to kind of, is that my in to me?
Deep dive?
Yeah.
A real deep dive into it.
You could even, send the deep dive for Deep Throat.
That's right, yeah.
But if that's my excuse to meet Gillian Anderson, I'll do it. I'll get a film crew.
Oh, that's fun. I don't think anybody's really, because it is interesting how that, the X-Files is due for its like nostalgia push because it was this huge thing. It was there was nothing bigger in like 96, 7, 8.
Yeah.
There was nothing bigger. Cover of every magazine. And then it's not the hot thing anymore. Then it goes for 4 more years.
Yeah.
And then it kind of lies dormant. And I know they had the new seasons, which
we don't talk about those. There was one good episode in each one,
and they're both written by Darren Morgan.
They sure were.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it is due for its nostalgia resurgence.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Like it's due for its. I think it's time to look at that again.
Yeah. I think that would be really cool because like a documentary that came out recently that I really loved was called The Orange Years, and it was a documentary about Nickelodeon, and it was about like it first started. It's really great, and like I mean, God, if you're in my age group, you watch it and you're just like, oh, like your whole like being, because there was just so much of it just tugs at your heartstrings.
And it was like Nickelodeon in the 90s. And
like it's real heyday, and like because they covered all of it, like when it first started and how it started and all that. But it is like, it was really cool. But I think...
Was Doug on Nickelodeon?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Doug, Rugrats, Rocko's Modern Life. I mean...
I was on Doug.
You were?
I was Mr. Shalaki as guidance counselor.
No, you were not! I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Sorry, I just went into a register that my voice is not heard in a long time. Oh, God. I loved that show.
That's so funny.
I loved that show. Patty Mayonnaise.
Yeah. Jenkins.
Yes.
Jim Jenkins.
Yep.
Yeah, nice guy.
Yeah. that show. I love the beats.
Yeah, he was very sweet guy. Jim was a very sweet guy too.
I loved that show.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny.
Well, yeah, we've talked about this. That anytime I'm like, oh, I used to love this show in the 90s. And you're like, oh, I was on an episode of that. Like all the time. And you've called it, you're like, I'm a tree. It's like, I have my roots.
Are, if it's, before 2000.
It's so funny. It's like you're in all of my favorite shows from then. You were in The Nanny. You were in Sabrina. I mean, just all of it. It's so funny.
There's no bottom. There's no bottom. So what is when you tour now? Are you doing one night? Are you doing clubs? You doing like one nighters? You go out for the weekend? What's coming up?
I truly feel like I will go wherever anybody will take me. Like, it's because I'm in this weird position where I'm not an open micer, but I'm also not. I'm not super famous. Like I have a late night credit, but that doesn't exactly do what it used to, you know?
No, it doesn't.
And especially because I feel like I really got stalled because of COVID. Like I got to do Conan.
Oh, 100%.
I got to do Conan right before COVID hit. Right. And it was like right before Christmas. And then as we were coming back and I was like ready to use that credit, it was like, we're all gonna hunker down. I'm like, fuck. So
if you remember, was it 12 days to flatten the curve?
God, it's like I think about it now. I remember my last set was at the Improv. I was hosting. I had hand sanitizer strapped to my belt, and I was up there, and I just kept. I have it, and I listened to it, and I cringe because none of us knew what was coming, and so I was just like, I just want to get it and get it over with, like all that. And I'm like, oh, like I go back and was like, oh my God. But
it is really weird too. Like, I don't know, did they know at the time that was bullshit, or did they really think we'll zip it down for 12 days and everybody will fight? Because I remember like wiping down my groceries.
Oh, all the crazy shit that we did. Like boiling everything. Yeah. It was just like insane.
Remember, we literally like went to the grocery store, stripped off my clothes in the garage, jumped in the shower.
I know, it was so crazy.
Yeah.
I don't miss those days at all. And you felt like you were in Mad Max going out to the grocery store and coming back and it's like, I got the gas and the women. Like, it was like so insane.
And it is amazing how human beings can adapt. Like there's all right, we're doing this now.
Yeah.
You know.
It is. It's
and man. It's so funny that sort of brings it full circle to like the anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers. Like strength was never the surviving mechanism.
I know.
Like, evolution does not favor the strong.
No.
It favors the adaptable.
The adaptable and the smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really true. It's really true.
Yeah, it is like, that's why with all the, like we were talking about all these right-wingers sort of acts, it's like you're killing your base. Like, you're not like, I know you're trying to make it so people can't vote, but also there might not be anybody left to vote for you.
How many popular anti-vaxxers are now dead from COVID? I mean, every day there's a new one.
It's wild.
Yeah, but there's always, it's like, for every one that goes, 3 replace them. It's just, it's like the Borg.
Yeah, they're breeding. Like, ugh.
And is your COVID chunk on Beach Trash?
It is. It's actually the beginning of the album. I kind of address it, and it's wild. Like, and even now I have like different COVID material because like things keep changing and whatever. And it is. It's funny because that album ended up being like, I'd say probably about half of it I wrote while I was in lockdown, and I was doing it.
Do you write at home? Like, do you sit and write?
I don't. I mean, it depends. Like, I find a lot of my material comes from, believe it or not, phone conversations. A lot of it will come from like just talking to my parents because that's what a lot of my stuff is. And it'll come from that and a lot of stuff from me being on the road too.
Sure.
So
whatever your life is at that time.
Yeah. It's hard for me to just sit down. If I have an idea for something, I can sit down and flush it out. But for me to just sit down and be like, what do I want to write about? It's like I can't get myself to do that. It's like I kind of have to have an idea and then just like get up on stage and try to figure it out.
There were a couple of examples in my work, just a few, where I really like sat down and like wrote a piece and then like memorized it and did, and then it always is destroyed and you have to rebuild it.
Yep.
But
I have long like paragraphs of things saved on my computer. It's so funny because I look at the dates and I see like that's how I would try to write when I started. And you'd write it like a monologue like that. Because you think that that's what stand-up is, because people make it seem so effortless that you think it's a monologue. Right. And then you go back and you look at it and you're like, if I die, somebody please burn this computer. I will be mortified if anybody sees this.
Blaine Capatch has a couple of, he started to do that where he's really just like worked on a long piece and like committed to a long, and it's a very retro thing. It's like Lenny Bruce used to do it, and they're just fucking brilliant.
He's so brilliant. It's so infuriating.
Good, it's infuriating.
when we were at your house working on jokes, and like it was so wild. It was so crazy for me to see him work in real time. Yeah, because like obviously his Twitter is brilliant, but to like sit next to him and watch him pitch jokes, I'm just like, the way his brain works is it's fascinating.
Great. He's so talented. Blaine Capatch. If you don't follow him, it's a fool's errand.
Oh my God. One of the funniest people on Twitter, if not the funniest person on Twitter. Like,
and you're just at Valeri Tosi?
At Valeri_Tosi.
Oh, is there another Valeri Tosi?
Yes. It made me so mad. And of course they have like 10 followers. And I'm like,
exactly. Yeah.
So, but I keep it the same across all the platforms because it's easier to remember.
Right. And where can one find Beach Trash?
So it is
the album, not the actual trash.
I was like, well, I'm right here. That comes out, I don't know when this is dropping. So
third week of January.
Okay, so this comes out January 21st. Will that be?
It'll come out right when it comes out.
Okay, so, cool. So it is available for pre-order. It drops on January 21st. It'll be on, you can buy it on iTunes and Bandcamp. Look, you can stream it on Spotify if you want to, but that does not pay anyone's bills. So if you do that, my Venmo is at Valeri Tosi. It is $9.99.
Yeah, good. I like Bandcamp a lot. I'm a member of Bandcamp.
I never really use it, but I'm not against it. I just never used the platform before.
Yeah, I like Bandcamp.
Okay.
And they're like they're really good at helping you curate new stuff.
That's neat because I was actually looking at Bronger's. Because you know what all comedians do. Yeah. We all look at each other's websites to see where they're going and be like, I'm going to hit that place up. Yeah. But I was looking at his and I noticed that all of his dates are with, it's like through Bandcamp. And I was like, oh, that's interesting how that, I need to start looking into that too.
Super cool. Well, Beach Trash by Valeri Tosi.
That's true. Order it. It's fun.
Other podcasts reach for the sky. Dana Gould Hour. We barely try.
This has been the Dana Gould Hour, brought to you by the Internet. Music by Andy Paley, with Jake Posner behind the board. Produced by Jeff Fox. Graphic design and web production by Spencer Hunt and Segan Friend. Sound editing and post-production by Jalinda Palmer and Joe Napolitano.
Hey, if you like the show, why don't you drop us a line at show@danagould.com. Tom Kenny speaking.
I'm a DJ, I'm a person, I'm a singer, I love to sing and DJ. Boom! Peace out. You want me? Peace out. Boom.